he raced a solid race. His tactics were phenomenal. He really raced well. So he's thinking cleverly when it comes to group racing. We know every year he keeps training, so every year he must be getting stronger. And it's not going to take long before we see Stu up there mixing it up with the top two and making the K1 team.
So Clinton Cook and Stu McLaren, who's you go back to the women, as Nix Burkett is happy to settle back and let Bridget go back to the front. Jenna Ward, what must be going through her mind if she's going to, I mean, she would fancy her chances of making the selection for the China team, but if she's going to try and dethrone Bridget, she's going to have to do something out of the box today.
Yeah, Jenna's just got back from a tour to one of the World Cups in Norway, so she went over and raced, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. So she's really going well. She raced against the top Hungarians over there and showed that she's on good form. And like I said, when it comes to tactical bunch racing, Jenna is really, really good at that. This isn't a tactical race, but it is a cat and mouse race. She's going to have to do something clever when it comes to a portage or a turn or something. But yeah, this is a tough situation. 3 girls, only 2 can make it. They're going to have to race very cleverly to make sure that they're in the top 2.
Back to the men's race. Let's catch up with what is going. Still Brian LaRue, but he's happy. He's taken his pull up to the top, and he's surrendered that pull. He's going to drop back onto the diamond.
Looks like Clint Cook taking it up again.
Clint is also really looking to assert himself up here. He's done the hard yards on this course. He's done the training. I think he's loving being back up here. He's training with the Dubulamanzi crew at Emmarentia, and has done a lot of time on this course. And I think he regards himself as somebody who's got the right to try and be assertive in this race.
Yeah, Clint was one of our top juniors back in the day, under 16 as well. Very, very strong, good marathon racer. It's taken a while for him to get his strength and stamina up for the senior racing, but he's there. This year he's made a big jump in performance. He's really, really paddling well. Training in Joburg has worked out for him. He's got a new job up here, so he's relocated up here. And I had the honour of paddling with Clint in the K2 senior race last year in St. Francis. I wasn't quite up to his standard, but he dragged me around the course for a bit, and I must say he's a powerhouse. So I look forward to great things from him in the future.
Yeah, an interesting guy, a man who's trained with the KZN squad where the Lee and Hank McGregors of this world are dominant forces, and he's brought that up and is now mixing it in a totally different environment up here. Contrast that with Andy Burkett, who's elected to go and live down in East London, where he's now joined a squad called the Tortoise Squad down there. But it's clearly working for him, and I guess if that's made you fit, balanced and happy, it's going to make you a threat on the day.
Yeah, I went down to East London for a wave ski contest recently. Actually, I stayed with Andy, and it seems like there's just such a good vibe down there in East London. There's a massive training group. There's a lot of them that train hard together. They push themselves hard, and they're having a lot of fun doing it.
Back to the women. It's Bridget Hartley at the front doing the pulling with Jenna Ward tucked neatly onto her left, Nix Russell on her right. Just keeping my fingers crossed that Nix is going to be all right on the day. We saw her yesterday really unhappy and doing the right thing by bailing on that short course race. And I know both Andy and Nikki last week were battling with flu. That's as a result of nursing young Davey the whole time. He's the focus of their attention, quite rightly. But I'm hoping that everything goes according to plan for Nix today.
I think Nikki's looking okay today. I think a short course race obviously is a lot more intense. The air was cold yesterday afternoon as well, so that also plays a part when the lungs are a bit sensitive after being sick. But at a slightly low intensity, she's looking comfortable, and I think she's going to hang in there until the end.
Back to the men's race, and still a huge bunch together at the front. The last time we came up to the turn cans, Hank McGregor pulled the trigger just to try and break that group up. It didn't do a very good, it shook a few off the back, but it hasn't done much in terms of breaking up that group. Let's see if Hank thinks of doing something again. He's tucked in right at the back.
You can see the nerves are jittery there. There's Brian LaRue going hard on the left again with Callum on his left. There's a lot going on in that bunch.
And Hank, well, you talked about the interesting aspects of the women's race, and the one place where I think Jenna may be able to assert her authority, and it's often the critical deciding point in a marathon race, is on the portages. In fact, when I caught up with her before the race, Jenna was telling me that we know how good Bridget is. If you give her an explosive gap, you're going to get done every time. But she can try her luck when it comes to the portages. Let's catch up with Jenna Ward.
Okay, Jenna, just run a rule over the ladies' race. What are you expecting?
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting race today. We've got Bridget Hartley and Nikki Russell and I think Morgan racing. So we've got a fair number of women on the start line. with Bridget on the start, it's going to be fast. She's an Olympic medalist on the sprint course, so yeah, it's going to be fast from the start, and we're going to have to try and hang with her and just wait till the first portage until that's all settled, and then hopefully just get into the swing of things and hope for a smooth race thereafter.
Okay, let's just unpack that a little bit more, because if you were racing a World Cup or a World Champs, you'd probably have 30, 40 women all taking off in the same bunch. This might be 3-2 quite quickly.
Yeah, it's got to be a completely different dynamic to what we would race at a World Champs. Lining up next to 20 people at a World Champs event compared to 4 over here changes the racing completely. It's almost a bit more of a time trial now, and you've actually just got to go as hard as you can from the start to the beginning. There's going to be not that many waves to help you or any tactics like that, so it's pretty much a hard grind till the end.
Okay, the number of turns, the fact that we've got short laps, lots of turns, lots of portages, how's that going to affect the women's race?
Yeah, I think that's what's going to make it a unique race for us. We're not going up and down, and it doesn't suit the sprinters, so it suits me actually, because there are obstacles. There's a lot of turns, like you said. The portages is coming a lot more quicker than usual, so it definitely makes it more exciting and not just a there and back course.
It also means that the sprinters, the speed freaks, are going to try and make the most of those few straights.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we get to those few straights, we're going to have to be watching for those intervals that might come, and just be on top of anything that could come with any of these obstacles that are thrown at us.
You've been paddling up here. Altitude, has that affected it?
I only arrived before the race, so they always say try and come in the day before your race. So I try not to worry about it. All the girls that we're racing do come from the beach where there is no altitude, so we're all in the same boat, and I think if it's going to affect one of us, it might affect all of us.
I'm really chuffed to see the level of interest from the women in terms of marathon, making that SA team and ultimately going to China to try and prove a point, which is where ultimately the test is going to come.
Yeah, South African marathon paddling has always been really big, in the men's department especially. So for the women to now try and be following in their footsteps, and try and make a name for themselves on the international circuit is what really counts. So having to slowly tick the boxes, make the team first, and then hopefully race at the World Marathon Champs in China later this year.
So Jenna Ward, as we go back to the men's race, and Hank McGregor as he comes up to the top of this dam here. And you raced this course yesterday. You were in the Bullies race. I'll say that with the greatest of respect. But you have had a look at the top end of the course here, and this is where tactically it becomes a little bit different. It's deep and clean, but it's different at the top. Yes, no?
Yeah, it's not too bad. There are a few little turns, but it's straight lines, and it's a clear course. It's very easy to follow. The organisers have done a great job of setting up the course, and it just works well. But there are some twists and turns to get around some trees and that, but it's not a factor. It's very easy to stick to where the course is. There's no big opportunities for squeezing and making it tricky for your competitors, which makes it nice and fair. But yeah, just watching Hank at the front there, I think they're coming up to the first portage potentially, so he's making sure he's in a safe position here. Still a very big bunch. And there's always a massive risk with a bunch like this coming into the first portage. It gets really heated, a lot of testosterone flowing around, and things can go wrong if you don't get there in the first 3 or 4 spots. So Hank has been very relaxed up until now, but he decided this is the time I've got to get to the front and make sure that I'm not at risk of someone else messing up my race. So that's what he's doing here.
I can almost see a speech bubble above Hank's head because he's talking to that group. And when you see that head that fluid and that relaxed, you know he's bantering in the group. And you got a very good point. As they're coming into this first portage, it's going to be essential in the first part of this race that if you want to be competitive, you get there early. This portage is short. It's a small jetty. You can probably get 3 singles side by side on that jetty, and there's only opportunity to get on the one side. That jetty is against the bank. The put-in has got opportunities on both sides of the jetty, and it's much longer. But the congestion is definitely going to come at the takeout, and Hank has quite rightly decided he doesn't want to get caught in the traffic at that stage. But for the rest of the bunch, the portages are going to be essential, and just don't do anything crazy. Don't do anything silly. Just keep a cool head.
Yeah, and when you're coming at in a pace into the portage in a race like this, it is easy to make mistakes, especially for the younger guys who don't quite have as much experience. So, yeah, Hank's definitely doing the right thing by being in the front there. But at the same time, I've seen Hank also being very relaxed at the back of a portage and knowing if something goes wrong, he can still make it up and make up the time afterwards because the race is still young.
So in the strong positions, Clint Cook just to the right of Hank McGregor, Stu McLaren just to his left. They're going around that buoy, which is going to take them into a gradual right-hand turn. And there's the big bunch. Callum Davis sitting nicely. Alan Housty just on his outside, running the rule through it. Brian Leroux trying to bully his way through the middle. He wants to be right in the mix when it comes to the sharp end of the portage. Really keen to prove a point. Nick Naughton moving into position. Andy Burkett, happy to be discreet in the background here. I don't think he wants to get caught in any dodgem cars at that first portage.
Yeah, he seems to be playing it calmly. I think the pace should pick up quite soon. It's Clint Cook with the pull at the moment. And just interesting to see at the back there, we've got Luke Stoneman. He trains with Christian Kutsia down in Paul. We know Christian just won that World Cup medal in the sprints a few weeks ago, which is fantastic. So Luke could have a bit of speed on him sitting at the back there. We're going to have to keep an eye on him. But yeah, he's training with one of our top sprinters.
Happy to see Hank drop back into the diamond and effectively into the worst of the traffic coming into the portage.
Yeah, it just shows that he's relaxed and he can. The thing is, a guy like Hank, he's got so much experience, and it's like a game of chess for these guys. They'll read the situation as it happens, and he'll make sure that as the guys approach the jetty, he puts himself in exactly the right place where it's safe, and he can avoid any chance of the other guys making an error.
Tell you exactly why Hank was happy to get back into the diamond. This is the end of lap 2, and normally in a marathon format it's 1 full lap and then 1 into the portage. Because of the shorter laps here, they do 2 full laps before they get into the portage. So, and the other thing which somebody pointed out to me the other day is if you look at that group, all racing at the same sort of speed, Hank McGregor is able to maintain the same speed at possibly 10% less stroke rate. It's just one of those alarming things that comes with. Maybe it's the genius of the man, maybe it's the physiology and the way that he's made up or the way he sets up his boat, but he just seems to be able to go the same speed with 10% less effort than anybody else.
Yeah, I think just years and years of paddling. Hank's been racing since he was probably about 12 years old. So I think his efficiency is just so high. He's getting so much out of his paddle that he can slow down a stroke rate a bit and still get the same power output as the other guys. But just looking at this bunch come past in real life here, it's still going at a good pace. It's moving well. So everyone who's on that bunch has put in the work to be here, and they're moving at a really solid pace.
Hank McGregor is a veteran, still hungry, still determined to get back and prove that he can be a world champion again at 41. And I think one of the most incredible things about the sport of marathon racing as an endurance sport is that it lends itself to guys in their late 30s and early 40s still to be world beaters. I mean, you go back to people like Manuel Busto, who was able to do it right into his, into his late 30s, early 40s. As Nick Naughton goes to the front now with Stu McLaren sitting on his wave. His turn to take the pull up to the top. Let's catch up with the women. It was a bunch of 3 when we caught up. This time it's Nix Russell who's gone to the front, looking very relaxed, looking very comfortable, with Bridget Hartley on her left and Jenna Ward on her right. Jenna just biding her time, and she's not flexing her muscles at all.
Yeah, like I said earlier, Dave, this is a very tough situation to be in with 3 boats. You're not quite sure how much effort to put in, because whatever you put in now, you're sacrificing for the end of the race. So you've got to make sure you put in just the right amount for everyone to be happy that you're doing enough work. But you don't want to use too much that when you get to the final lap or 2, you're a bit spent. So it's actually quite a tricky situation to be in with 3 boats like this for the women.
In the background there in that green boat, and somehow all her successful boats have been green boats, Bridget Hartley, I think we sometimes neglect just what a contribution she has made to paddling, because here's somebody who was a sprint medalist at the London Olympics, who at this stage in her career is challenging for a place in the national team to go to sprints and try and qualify for the Olympics. She's trying to qualify for a place in the national marathon team, and she's qualifying for the surf ski team to go to the surf ski worlds, which is remarkable, and I think we forget that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Bridget's come from mainly a sprinting background, but she has spent a lot of time in the surf ski recently, and she's been racing marathons for years and years now. I think she started racing marathons in about 2007 or so she's got a lot of experience in the marathon, but she's definitely brought South Africa a lot of glory on the sprint course with her Beijing medal and her medal in the Sprint World Champs last year. I think it was the 1000k one. But yeah, bottom line, she keeps training hard, she keeps doing the work, and if you're strong enough, you should be able to compete in all disciplines.
Okay, and you're a member of the CSA Marathon Committee, so the context of the comments that I'm going to ask from you, people will be able to read. Here are the 3 girls. Let's assume these are the 3 best in the country, but they're on their own. If we want them to succeed at that World Cup, World Champs level, as you heard Jenna saying in her interview, we need to get them into a group where there are 20 or 30 comparable women racing in really competitive sort of environments, and that means, sadly, to get them out of the Southern Hemisphere and racing in Europe and World Cups and European Champs and World Champs more.
It definitely does help, and I think that's a big part of why Jenna went over and raced the World Cup in Norway 2 weeks ago. But we're very fortunate in South Africa. We have a very strong club system. All the clubs have a weekly time trial where it's around between 8 to 10 kilometers. We have everybody racing, all the men, all the juniors, all the ladies, all racing in one big race. And there they're learning their tactics. There they're learning their positioning in the bunch. They're learning all of that, which a lot of the Europeans don't get exposed to that kind of racing. And we have it every single week at our club time trials. They get to race in that kind of situation, as well as our weekend races.
And I think the blunt reality for these women is that they actually benchmark themselves against the guys, and that's a healthy thing. It's a good thing.
They have to do that, because we see today they're racing, there's 3 boats. It's not a true reflection of what a race would be internationally. Yes, you do get 2 or 3 boats breaking away sometimes, and I think these girls are strong enough to be in breakaways at World Champs. So you can, of course, get a race like this at World Champs, but it is important to expose themselves to bunch racing.
Just off to the left of the picture at the moment, Jenna Ward has taken the decision. She took it about 18 months ago that she was going to give her marathons as best a shot as she could, and at some personal sacrifice in terms of cost and time. She's been racing overseas, training overseas, and really trying to learn all the nuances of racing, women's marathon racing at that level. And I think she'll be looking for that to come good in the next couple of months.
Yeah, another thing which Jenna's done, she's actually the chairman of KZN Marathon at the moment, and something she's implemented is that at the KZN Marathon trials, all the women race together, from juniors through to masters, and that allows them to race in a big bunch and gain that exposure to bunch racing and tactical racing. So that has worked quite well in KZN, so a good one of Jenna to implement that.
Well, for all the Andy and Nikki fans, it's great to see it. The pedals go down. Nix is now taking some juice. She's had quite a long pull at the front of this 3-boat bunch that's leading the women's race at our SA Marathon Champs. So Bridget's going up on her left. Jenna now for the first time is going to the front of the bunch, and Nix suddenly finds an extra gear and goes back to the front, having got her juice back in. The great news is she's feeling good today. When I spoke to her beforehand, she said she seemed to have shrugged off whatever was bugging her yesterday, and I hope that lasts the duration of their 25K.
Yeah, she's looking comfortable so far, and I think it's amazing to see her back in the boat after having a child. And we often see it with women. They come back stronger after having children a lot of the time. I think it just toughens you up a bit. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if we're going to get a stronger Nikki Burkett after having a child. It's quite possible.
So there we go, some movement happening in the men. There's more muscle flexing as they head up to the top. Andy Burkett, of course, comes into this. That's Clint Cook, I think, going hard on the left there with his head down. And this group looks like it might fracture as they're heading to the top turn can. And Andy Burkett is sitting very comfortably with him. Andy Burkett, the reigning K1 and K2 world champion, and a man who's still got plenty of passion to go back and try and retain both of those titles in China in a couple of months' time. Andy very relaxed, a little concerned amongst his supporters that he might have picked up a flu bug that was going to hamper him today, but he did tell me before he got onto the water he's feeling hundreds.
Yeah, I think it gets tough when you have...
Andy, you're living in a household of sick people at the moment. How are you feeling? Have you shrugged off your flu?
No, not really. My son is healthy. Nix has been a little bit sick for a few days, but she's back to full strength, and I'm feeling good. I'm looking forward to racing.
Okay, you've had a look at, you opted out of yesterday's short course. Just talk us through that.
Yeah, I just feel that we do 2 races already when we're overseas, if you make the team for 2 races, and normally after the weekend of racing at World Marathon Champs, I'm pretty broken. So my decision was just, can I handle another race overseas? Do I want to? And I don't think I will. So I was opting out of it just because I don't intend on racing overseas in the short course at all. I've done a few at World Cups and everything, so I know what it's about. But this year I'll give us a skip.
Plus you had to give Hank a chance to win one.
No, I think Hank would have probably drilled me yesterday.
Okay, you're thinking about today's race because the cool thing is it's you and Hank. We know what you guys can do, but the next generation is really out to rattle your cages today.
No, for sure. There's a lot of guys that have put in the work this year, and I know Nicky Notton yesterday could see racing against Hank. And I mean, he's got a whole squad that train with him in Cape Town that are racing against us today that also didn't do the short course. That'll be strong. And Clint Cook has moved up to Joburg. He's also put in a good few weeks of training, so it's always going to be a good race.
Okay, your form at this stage in the season?
You know, Dave, it's hard always before a race to try and judge your form until after the first lap. So if you stopped everyone after the first lap and you could say, how's your form, we could all answer, but it's hit and miss until then.
You've been on your own in East London as well. It's a completely new environment. I mean, your personal life has completely changed. It's a different routine to try and slot the training into.
It's actually been really nice with having a group to train with. Last year in Durban, I was on my own, barring 1 or 2 sessions with Hank in a double. And we've got a really nice training squad down there. In East London, we call ourselves the Tortoise Squad, but with Henny and the Fens and Nix, we normally got a group of 6 boats at least on the water together. So it's a really nice training squad we've got.
This course, short, lots of turns, more portages. How's that going to affect the race?
I think that's what marathon racing is about. It's always exciting and always different. It's not the same course between 2 different spots. You're always going to have fun and learn as you go around the course and see what's going on. But yeah, I think portages every single lap after the third, I think it makes for more exciting racing for us, with it being shorter laps. So definitely be an aggressive race.
Tough question. I mean, as world champ, you're the one that everybody would love to knock off your perch.
Well, Hank is 10 times world champ, and I've only got one singles under my belt, so I don't know if I agree with that.
Are you still hungry to do what you do? I mean, I suspect that the minute that hunger goes, we might see you doing something else.
For sure, Dave. I really enjoy the marathon racing, and something I've said last year as well. I'll be back for it again and again, but when I stop enjoying it, you won't see me here anymore.
Well, we definitely are seeing him because he's in the middle of your picture right now. Now they're heading into the first portage. Clinton Cook sitting on his outside. Hank McGregor, position 1, coming into the first portage. Is really not going to be caught with his pants down. Stu McLaren just on his outside. Brandon van der Walt, a.k.a. Stomach, sitting in the background, looking comfortable as well. And slowly this group is starting to stretch out. And I think this portage coming up might just splinter this group, Ant.
Yeah, this is always going to be important. The first portage of a race, a lot can happen. Like we said earlier, we were confused why Hank and Andy weren't at the front, but we had got it wrong. But this is actually the first portage they're coming up to now. And the key players come straight to the front to make sure that they stay out of trouble. Andy looking comfortable and controlled. Hank also looking very relaxed. Clint Cook looking good. And Luke Stoneman there at the back of the group, also looking comfortable. But I think we're in for a bit of action here at this first portage.
Look at this first group. There's Luke Stoneman, there's Alan Housen, and there's Stuart Little, all in a bunch sitting behind Andy and Hank. That's fantastic experience for these guys. And I don't know how long this group is going to be together. My suggestion is it's going to be splintered quite badly in about 2 minutes' time. But into the first portage they come. World Marathon champs, K1 and K2 over the last couple of years. They pretty much had a stranglehold on it for the last couple of years. So as those comments that we read about on social media beforehand, this is probably the toughest national marathon championship in the world. And if you look at the class that's on display on the screen right now, you'll see exactly why.
Stu Little's looking comfortable on the left of the group there. If he doesn't get squeezed out, he could get a nice take out there. But Luke Stoneman pushing him hard as well. We see them coming to the portage here. Andy and Hank looking relaxed, which also helps relax the whole pace and just feel of the bunch, which makes everyone a bit more calm and relaxed.
So Hank comes into the middle. Andy's going to go right to the end. It's going to put a little bit of pressure on Clinton Cook, but he gets out beautifully clean. All 4 out. They're all getting out. There's no issues on the first portage. Andy Burkett's doing the running at the front. Look how quick Hank McGregor is. Cross-country athlete as a schoolboy. He was very successful, and he's lost none of that pedigree as a marathon racer. And at the put-in, Clinton Cook is going to be the first back into the water. Andy Burkett going to the end of the jetty. Clint getting his paddle caught on Andy's boat, but keeping a cool head. This is where it's so important just to keep your wits about you. Hank McGregor going around the outside. Stu Little, great put-in. He's now sitting second, and as the sprinter happens in the group, he's back at the front. There's 4 boats that are going to get away, and Stu Little is one of them.
Yeah, Stu was just set up perfectly for that takeout, which is great to see. Clint Cook also looking really comfortable in the front there. He had a brilliant run. He got out so cleanly. His leg speed was so good over the run. Put in cleanly. A bit of a tussle there. I think Hank struggled. He had to wait a bit for Clint to get out the way. But yeah, it still looks good. Everyone's together. There's no major drama there.
And it's Stu McLaren who's now on the back of that group trying to get onto the front bunch, and looks like he's going to be able to do it. A little bit of a pressure coming from Hank McGregor on the inside now. He's looked over his shoulder. This is the chance to convert 12 down to 4, and he's gone. For the first time, Hank is really putting the pedal to the metal here. Clint Cook is on his outside. Andy Burkett's making sure that he's sitting on, he's got his Cinco on that outside wave. Hank now, I think, keen to shake things up a little bit now and shortlist people.
Yeah, Stu McLaren working hard on the outside there. He's got to challenge Andy. That's quite a tough ask, but I think he's going to sneak past Andy. Andy's going to settle for the diamond. And that's a great looking top 4 there. The other guys are obviously still there, but that front 4 is a solid bunch of paddlers.
Stu McLaren is somebody who will be looking to convert his experience and his success as a K2 paddler into a K1 at this level.
Definitely, yeah. Stu's been working hard for a long time now. He spent a few years doing sprints as well. He's come back to marathon. And like I said, he's got a good tactical head on him, watching him race last year at Worlds. And yeah, obviously he's going to he's really looking forward to the K2 race tomorrow, but there's no reason why he can't perform in this K1 race today.
So these are the guys that were taking off. You saw Hank McGregor just threatening to demolish that group by putting in an explosive burst. You see him looking over his shoulder right now. He wants to see what sort of damage he's done with that takeoff. Hank McGregor's explosive interval is something which I think is legendary all over the world. Didn't really see it at the start. In fact, the start is fascinating. Let's just rewind the clock to what happened at the start. At the start pontoon, there were 16 boats. I predicted that it was going to be Hank taking off, but let's have a look at that again. And now that we've had the luxury to digest what has happened, and let's just unpick what happened at the start, because it was not the way I thought it was going to be. There they are on the start pontoon. And the move seems to come from Brian LaRue. He's going really nice. That's Brian. Andy Burkett is nicely positioned at the front of that.
Luke Stoneman also has a good start there.
Explosive start from Luke. It's impressive. And Nick Naughton got himself into a strong position early on.
And Alan Houston as well is right up there.
So Andy very composed in getting there.
Hank's right on the back there. He's almost just heading straight for the diamond and looking very relaxed. So he's chosen to conserve energy at the start rather than burn energy and make sure he's at the front, which also shows that he's confident.
Absolutely. It's an ominous sign when Hank is feeling that chilled and unfazed by dice happening in front of him. Callum recovering well, actually. That could have been a disaster for him in the traffic. Let's go back to the women's race. Jenna Ward now goes to the front. Bridget Hartley goes down onto the diamond. Bridge trying to go around Nikki, I think. Nikki still looking comfortable. Jenna looking very determined, very in the zone.
They're all looking strong. I think Nikki's pulling again, and she doesn't look like she's pulling slowly. She's really going for it. I think she has been training hard as well in East London with that training group. She's here to take it seriously. She wants to make the team. She wants to be back in the marathon team in the mix of things, and she's showing us true determination here. I think they're getting pretty close to their first portage, the woman.
Yep, and this is where Jenna would be looking to try and assert herself. Just looking at Bridget's technique, I think having started out life as a sprinter and having worked with Hungarian coaches in the early stages of his career and done a lot of her training in Hungary. She spent long, lonely months on her own in a flat in Budapest and places like that, training with Hungarian girls. She's got such a powerful leg thrust
You
and
can just see
technique.
how powerful and controlled her stroke is, and that's years and years under Nandal Massey. She spent a lot of time working on that efficiency because that's really key when it comes to sprinting.
So into the first portage they come, and it's Nikki Russell who's going to be leading this three-boat bunch at the front of the women's race. Bridget Hartley trying to assert herself. She's going long. She's going to be jumping out at the top end of the portage. Nix gets out nicely, cleanly, hand on the handle of her Nello. But for all of that, Bridget Hartley's got out first. And Jenna Ward, who prides herself in her ability on the runs, is now shadowing these two as they run down their first portage. Not an easy portage, this, actually. It's not level. You've got to have your wits about you.
Yeah, I think it's nice to see Bridget running so nicely. I think Bridget's worked really hard in her running in the last few years. Not just the shorter stuff, she's doing a few longer runs, and it's really paid dividends.
Now there's traffic in front of them as they come to the put-in, and sorry. In fact, all of them had to curtail their put-in because there was a slower male paddler in front of them. But it's Bridget who's going to get away first, and Jenna has put in beautifully and has now pulled the head of Nikki.
Yeah,
so
Nikki's
Nix has got a bit of work to do if she wants to stay with this bunch. Nix is now 5 or 6 boat lengths back and not in any great rush to get back on by the looks of it. She's got some work to do, and Bridget is not trying to put in the hurt here. She's not trying to make the stick. But it's entirely up to Nikki to decide now whether she wants to get back on.
It might not look like it with Bridget's efficient stroke, but she's putting a lot of power there. I'd like to think Nix is going to give it one last go to get back on there. It'd be great to see her back on that bunch, but she's going to have to work hard to get back there.
I must admit, she did say to me beforehand when I asked her how she was feeling, she just said, I'm just going out there to have fun. And if it starts getting hot and hurting, I'm seeing maybe this is a defining moment in Nikki's race right now. I'm just trying to read something into the body language there.
I think looking at that gap, she will be hurting a bit. I won't say it's over. Bridget is going for it, but hopefully Nix hangs in there a bit longer, the pace slows down, and she gets back on the group.
And the rationale is 100% from these two girls. Step one is the principal issue here is selection for that national team. So if you can simplify that to 2 and make that stick with a good hard lap or 2, then it kind of simplifies. Then you're simply down to the race for gold.
Exactly. So this is an important move by Bridget and Jenna. Like Dave said, the important thing here is to be selected for the team. See, Bridget's just stopped to let Jenna take up the pull, and I can assure you Jenna's going to go for it because they know 2 boats go. If you're not in the team, you can't even get an opportunity of winning a medal at World Champs. So priority number 1, make the team. So first 2 here is what's really important for them right now.
So Bridget Hartley on the right, Jenna Ward on the left, front of the women's race at the SA Marathon Champs 2019 at Cradle Moon. Welcome if you have just joined us, wherever you are in the paddling world. following this on the live stream, whether it's on Facebook or one of the websites that's carrying the code, or I see a lot of other federations and paddling clubs have embedded this code as well. There's a real interest in what is going on in South African paddling. It's middle of our winter. Most of the marathon racing around the world is done in the middle of the summer. People don't realize it was 2 or 3 degrees when the first of the races, when you buddies were getting on the water.
When I arrived this morning to pull my boat out of the wreck, it was covered in a layer of ice. And all the other boats were, I took off my shoes to get ready to get on the water, and I was walking barefoot on the ice. So yeah, we have to suffer a bit here in Africa.
This is the under-18s race that started a little bit earlier today. They didn't have the worst of the cold. But as somebody who's got the interest of marathon paddling at heart, the under-18 K2 was a fantastic race. I mean, the depth from every corner of the country, which is the important thing. The level of competitiveness is as a result of having heroes like Hank McGregor and Andy Burkett inspiring this generation.
It's definitely made a massive difference. And you look at our junior paddlers, we've got David Evans and Hamish McKenzie in this race who have medalled in the last 2 World Championships as juniors, and they still get to race again this year. So they must go into this year's Worlds as one of the favourites. We've got great depth in the juniors and in the under-23s. So people are aspiring to be like guys like Hank and Andy, and they know it's possible to win medals at World Champs at the senior level, and it's definitely helping the growth of the sport at the lower down, younger levels.
And we saw the under-16s mixing it with the under-18s as well, which goes right back to your rationale about putting them into big groups and get them to be blooded in the heat of battle. The sad thing about this race for me, and I'm not preempting any decision of your marathon committee, it turned out to be a fantastic race at the front until Matt Finn and Uli Hart landed up with rudder problems, and it is the scourge of marathon racing to see a race being undone by technicals. They lost a rudder and eventually ended up withdrawing from a very hotly contested second place. But it's...
Yeah, it was a massive pity, and you're just looking at the shot here. This is Hamish McKenzie and David Evans, one of the world's best junior boats. You just look how slick they are at that takeout.
In fact, this is where the damage was actually done, because it was on this first portage where the rudder, that was the drop of the rudder.
Both these boats now damaged their rudders. So that's boat 2 and 3, who now immediately on the first portage are on the back foot with broken boats.
And on that second portage, that rudder actually came entirely out of the bottom of that Nello. So, and the other boat there, just ask Callum, has got a long history with the rudder. Remember the World Marathon Champs in Maritzburg?
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate at this level of racing to see technical issues like this. It makes it tough for everyone, especially with selecting the team, deciding who the best boats are to go. But without a doubt, this boat, they're just so slick. They're even running in time. They're just in a league of their own at the moment, at least in this country. And I look forward to watching them race in China. I think they're going to be hungry for that gold.
A lot of chat about the preferred setup of a boat for a course like this. All our marathon courses are completely different. Some of them have got beach takeouts, some of them have got jetty takeouts. A lot of people racing with overstern rudder boats.
Yeah, they generally try and simulate the course for what's happening at the World Champs. So they'll try and simulate the portages, the takeout and put in.
So the elite men coming into their portage, second portage. And the group very much fractured by that first portage as we're watching the tail end of the K2 race. And this is with and that was that boat fraught with, and this is where the rudder comes out. I think this is the end of the game.
These guys were actually one of those boats that fell in the beginning. They stopped and fixed their rudder, so they've actually been left. But they've carried on racing. They're not actually lying second there, but they've continued to race.
Colours of Michael House in the back row doing good things. They've got a big contingent that's come
up. What
about
the college vest there, Dave? There's Maritzburg College everywhere.
We will unpack us in a little time, since Andy Burkett also went to college and he is the reigning world champ. So you do have some bragging rights. So here we go, portage. Andy Burkett first to the takeout. Hank McGregor breathing heavily. Nick Naughton in a good position. Stu McLaren. Callum Davis. Beautifully positioned. Andy running it hard. Boat beautifully balanced on the run. Stu McLaren just behind him. Hank goes up into third. Callum really beautifully positioned. Nick calm and very composed. And as they get to the put-in, everybody going to the left. Hank McGregor deciding he's going to flip the boat over to the right, so he puts in on the other side just to avoid the traffic. Clint has now got a little bit snarled up in Hank's boat. Hank jumps into that boat. Good balance, good composure. Andy Burkett leads the group away. Now there's an opportunity for the group to split up. Callum right in there as well as he heads on to Hank's wave.
Stu McLaren nicely positioned there on Andy's wave as the two of them get a bit of a gap. But Hank's still looking very calm. He's waiting for someone else to do the work to close the gap. No one quite wanting to do that yet, but there is a small gap opening there. But Hank obviously very relaxed if he's not prepared to do the work to close the gap just yet.
Common trend there. Stu McLaren makes up time in portages.
Yeah, Stu trains hard. Like I said, he practices. He makes sure he's got no weaknesses. And if you can make sure you don't lose on a portage and a takeout and a put-in, it's going to give you an advantage. As we watch Stu McLaren go to the front there, and he drops onto his wave. The main group seems to be quite relaxed. They're not at all trying to close that gap yet. So that's going to be quite interesting. Are Stu and Andy going to go for it?
So lap number 5. We're heading into the middle part of this race. Stu looking over his shoulder to see who's gone with him. I think he was also looking for some sort of an indication from Andy about whether there was any sense in trying to gun it here.
I think they've decided to kind of half-heartedly go for it. They know they need to keep the pace up.
You don't prod the bear.
Yeah. So now we've got one of the younger guys picking up the pace. Hank was clever not doing the work. Clint Cook's gone to the front, and he knows with a bit of speed he can close that gap down quickly, and that's what he's doing. And Callum Davis right there on Clint's wave as well.
Callum looking up for it today.
Yeah, no, he's racing well. Nick Norton also still there. Hank's on that group. These 4 under no pressure. They're making contact already again, and the group's going to be back to 6 in the next few seconds.
So the under 18 K2, that's the end of the race. At the end of what you're quite right in saying was a super impressive performance.
These guys are just, they just gel so well together. And the second boat as well, they were really strong. They were impressive.
Yeah.
Gustav Smith
Oh, to be
Jr.
a selector.
Oh.
So from the under 18 K2 race, which kept us captivated, let's see what's happening in the women's race. And it's Jenna Ward on the left and on the right, and Bridget Hartley in her green and yellow boat on the left. One thing I was puzzling about as we were watching the previous bunch is the range of equipment being used. A lot of paddlers aren't spoiled for choice. A lot of these guys are racing in Nellos, but generations of Nello, they go back 4 or 5. Some of them have got a particular affinity with the boat and they won't leave it. They'll be a Cinco man, or they won't leave the Quattro behind. But there's a huge array of choice of boats on the water.
Yeah, and the great thing is there's been really good quality boats for about 15 years now. So even if your boat is 12 or 13 years old, you still can race. It's really good quality, it's fast, it's light, there's nothing wrong with it. So it allows the guys who maybe haven't got the financial backing as the top guys to still race competitively in a slightly older boat that doesn't give them a disadvantage.
And I think what Hank has done is as well, by using a locally manufactured boat for much of his time, is just given people the confidence to buy a local product, know that it can be the same size, spec, and just as competitive as an imported boat,
yeah,
which comes with the Euro price tag.
Kayak Centre have been making great boats over the years, as well as Carbonology, kayak racing. We've got a lot of strong manufacturers in this country, and there's nothing wrong with the performance of our locally manufactured boats.
So Jenna Ward on the right hand of your screen, looking very confident, looking very comfortable, and they're licking along, these two. Bridge, always behind those mirror shades. Quite difficult to get a read on where Bridge is and how she's feeling, but she's looking very comfortable and composed, very measured, long stroke. She's got a loping stroke, but it's very efficient.
Yeah, I think the pace isn't too slow. I think they're still going for it. They know if I think especially for Jenna, if she keeps the pace too slow and Bridget has a bit of extra zip at the end, it might be a disadvantage. So Jenna's got to make sure that the pace is high all the way through and slowly try and wear Bridget down, which is tough in a group of 2, but yeah, they're keeping the pace going nicely.
So heading down into the portage, and I expect the middle part of the women's race is going to be fairly uneventful. They're going to lick through it. I think every chance they get to one of the bottom turn cans and they see that they've put a block of time between themselves and Nikki, it's going to give them the security to be able to dictate their own pace and then save it for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, they're in a situation where they know if they both finish together, they're both in the team, which is number one priority. But they both want to go home with their gold medal. They didn't come here to come second. So they're going to race tactically, they're going to race hard, and we're going to see an interesting finish. It might come sooner, but yeah, Bridget looking very focused, Jenna also, and Nick's on that shot, doesn't look too far behind. I'm not too sure how far it is actually behind. Just looking across the course now, it is actually quite a big gap, but at least she's still going for it.
I think our crew is armed with some substantially long lenses here, and I think the telephoto lens dramatically exaggerates the distance, but I think she is a long way back. And I think what we read into that resignation as she went through the start-finish shoot last time was 100% on the money. Long, lonely afternoon in store for next, I think.
Yeah, I think Nikki Burkett is still interested in that surf ski team that's going to France later in the year, so she's going to be focusing on that. So she'll use this as a good training session, and who knows? Things can happen. One of the girls, I'm not saying it will happen, but they can have a boat problem or an illness or something, and she could come back into the mix. But at this stage, they're looking solid.
Into the portage, Jenna Ward going long. Bridget Hartley is going to be taken out a little bit earlier. Hartley quickly out of the boat. Jenna quickly out of the boat. No problems with either of these girls, both using handles on the sides of their cockpits and cantering through the portage. Bridge running well. Bridge running well and confidently and using the portages to try and just assert her authority on this race. Bridge making a small lead on Jenna as she comes into the portage. Of course, it gives her the luxury of choosing the side. She's going to go left, which is what Jenna was always going to do. Means Jenna has to put in a little bit earlier. There's no urgency from Bridge to try and really make this hurt. Jen very quickly into her boat and onto Bridget's wave. So status quo remains the same as the girls move away from the portage at the end of their second portage. Men are on lap number 5, and now we get a good sense of just how far back Nikki Burkett is. She's on her own. Front 2 women are pulling away around the first of those 3 turn cans at the bottom, and Nikki is heading on to the start pontoon now. So she's probably 75, 80 meters off the pace right now, and as we see her putting in at the end of her portage, I think she's quite content that race is hers to dictate right now. She's under no threat from behind. Her chances of catching somebody in front are negligible unless a meteorite falls out of the sky. And that women's race is going to be decided by the 2 women on screen at the moment. Jenna Ward, nearest to us, Bridget Hartley, the London 2012 500-meter K1 bronze medalist. Do you remember where you were on the day that happened, Ange?
I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting in Spain in a little coffee shop. Myself and Cam were preparing for the Cellar, and we were screaming so loudly at the TV, everyone thought we were crazy in the middle of Spain. But yeah, that was a great day for South African canoeing to come for Bridget to get us that Olympic medal.
Now, one of those defining moments. Where were you when? I was sitting at watching on dodgy broadband on a cottage in Underberg, and the broadband kept breaking down. It was buffering, and the language was ripe. I promise you, it was so frustrating, but just as exciting. So we're going back to the girls, and I got to say, what's exciting about the girls, look at them, lots of them racing river spec boats, far off marathon spec boats, but one, the depth is there, the enthusiasm to get up there and try and mix it with the best is right up there. But some of the talent that's evident here amongst the junior girls is super exciting.
It's really great, and I think the development programs South African's really been effective. Janet Simpkins doing a lot of hard work there. And we see Nonsipo there with paddling with Amy Peckett. They were strong, they were solid, and they were the eventual winners of the race. But yeah, it's great to see the development paddlers coming through. These other 2 girls in the yellow boat as well, young girls, strong girls, and there's so much depth coming through, and it's great to see that in the women paddling.
And the depth is coming out of the Eastern Cape, the Western Cape, KZN, and up here in Gauteng, which is a very positive sign. In fact, Amy won this race from a remarkable set of circumstances because they were actually flailing at some stage. Amy landed up carrying one of the boat on her own in one of the portages while Nosipa was struggling behind. They were so weak on the portages, but she had the composure and the tactical corp to be able to keep it together to come back and win the race, which says a lot, not just for the fact that they've got the speed, but they've learnt the tactical balance of what goes into a marathon race.
Yeah, we just watched our leading juniors coming out for the portage here. They probably haven't trained together, so it's never going to be easy.
The watch is portage. Okay. Nosipa goes in. Amy jumps out and realizes Nosipa's in, so she yells at her, run. Now, Amy takes off on her own, carries the boat all the way through, but realizes there's no point.
Yeah.
But if you watch the portage, now this gives the opportunity to these girls to take the lead. But behind them, Amy carries the boat all the way through until she realizes Nosipa's going to have to catch up. She slows down just in time for her to pick up the cockpit as they come down. Bam, well done, well played.
Yeah, and Georgina and Melanie just getting in the boats, composed. And yeah, they've got a lot of years ahead of them, so just great to see them pulling away confidently there, not under pressure. They know they don't want to break away on their own just yet.
Yeah, so heartening and so encouraging. What was encouraging as well, I actually heard the chatter among some of the girls when they looked up and said they saw some of the senior women sitting on the bank watching, and the sense of affirmation and encouragement that they extract from the women who are going to the World Champs every year, watching them and cheering them on, really means a lot. So there's a real sense of the marathon family here. There's Amy and Nosipo getting in at the end of one of their portages, eventual champions in this race. But it was a great contest. It was fascinating to watch. It chopped and changed and waxed and waned, and Yeah, I think they're going to sleep very comfortably with those
Yeah,
gold medals on the
and
bedside
I think
table.
this is their first time on a boat together, so it's encouraging. I'm sure with a bit of training and just fine tuning, they could be a really competitive boat when they get to World Champs later in the year. See this one compared to their first portage already, they're getting better every time.
So back to the men's race, and let's have a look at what's going on here. It's Clint Cook who's gone back to the front, Andy Burkett sitting with him, and Nick Naughton, comfortable to sit on the outside and just bide his time.
Stu McLaren on the diamond. Stu Little at the back there, Callum Davis and Luke Stoneman all on the back.
Callum having to work quite hard to stay with this bunch right now. There is another boat just to the right off camera. Stu McLaren looking very comfortable at the moment, and Clint Cook, who having been a KZN-based paddler for a long time, originally raised down here. He started paddling with Brandon van der Walt, who's also in this group. And they're K2 partners for many, many years down at the Emmerentia setup that was so powerfully driven by Brandon's dad back in the day. But Clint Cook back up here in Joburg for work, and in great nick. Really, he's been relishing the opportunity to race here, and he's going to be the first out to the portage. Andy Burkett just beyond him, Hank McGregor, Nicky Naughton. That's the first five as they come out. Oh, and there's a boat drop down on the rudder. Let's hope that rudder's okay. Stu Little's in there as well. Callum Davis with the red boat. Hank McGregor going through the drink zone. Nick Naughton, who's just been poker-faced throughout this whole race so far. Clint Cook putting in first. Andy Burkett going just a little bit longer. Stu McLaren looking for a gap in the traffic. Hank McGregor's putting in on the left as well. So the first four all went left. Callum's having to jump over his boat as he puts in on the right. That section on the right-hand side has got a slightly enlarged bit of plastic next to the Astro, which is where a lot of slipping happened on that first day. And I think the pros that were watching, the seniors, have all wised up to that fact. So nobody's taking any chances. And look who goes to the front.
Yeah, it's always going to be chaotic with a big group coming in and out of a portage. It's great for spectators, but it's always a bit stressful for the athletes. You just got to make sure you get in, out, and back in cleanly again and back on your way. But yeah, the key players still at the front of the race, as well as a great bunch of young, strong paddlers coming through here, and it's just so awesome to see the depth of senior paddling in South Africa at the moment.
So we're on to lap number 6 now, and I have taken on the duty of counting laps. So lap number 6. Just gone past the halfway. Hank McGregor has got the 660 number board on the back of his K1. Got Clint Cook on his left, Andy Burkett on his right. So Ant and I were chatting about the under-18 girls race. Nosipo and Amy jumping out for their final portage. What an exciting race. I think after the dramas that beset them in the middle part of the race, most of the big crowd that was watching this race didn't give them much of a chance to come back. But Nosipo really had to dig deep. She had to go really hard, find a little bit of courage and use some of the character to make up. She really is not a natural runner at this stage of the game, but she had to match Amy on the runs. She really gave everything to her, so hats off to them. That was the last portage for them, and I'm sure she was relieved to see the last of that little bit of AstroTurf and dirt here at Cradle Moon. Amy pushes them off, and Nosipo now sensing that, gee, she's got a chance to be a national champion in the under-18 girls K2 under the guidance and tutelage of Amy. And away they go. That boat, when it was going and they got the rhythm going, was certainly very efficient in the water. Looked over her shoulder and passed on to Amy up front the news that Georgina was just behind them, but they've got a big chunk of water, enough to safeguard them the victory. And that's the quick high five into the back cockpit. South African champions in the under-18 girls, and there's the silver medal. It was a great race. There's so much talent on display here. And that's an under-16 boat in the background there. So it's under-18, under-16 making up the 1-2 in this race. And if you can't extract heaps of positives out of that, then you're missing the point. Well done, girls. Exciting times. Now back to the men. Stu McLaren going to the front, I think that is. Andy Burkett coming up on the right. Clint Cook dropping back onto the diamond. Nicky Naughton coming up on the right. Nicky has kept his nose clean this race. Hank McGregor totally unfazed by the fact that he's now sitting on the outside wave. Callum Davis has scrambled his way back onto that bunch. Andy Burkett now at the front as they head up to the top end of the course here at Cradle Moon. Nicky Naughton coming up on the outside. On the diamonds, Clint Cook happy to be there. And that black K1 of Hank McGregor is just looming ominously, comfortably large, just off the front four. Andy Burkett now resident down in East London, where he and Nikki moved last year. Exciting times for them, setting up home. Birth of their little boy Davey, who has kept them properly busy. He is the VIP resident in their household, sleeping between Andy and Nikki in the bed at night. So he's just like any astute pet would do, bosses the owners around to make sure that his position ends up optimally. Davey has worked out Andy and Nick's just nicely. So happy times in the Burkett household down in East London. We talked a little bit earlier about the Fenn boys. Josh and Matt Fenn have been significant figures in the South African racing industry. We talked about Kayak Centre, and Fenn are producers of arguably the world's best surf skis, and they've been producing some really good K1s, and more of our national champs, both sprint and marathon, have seen Fenn K1s, the F1 being used. Well, the Fenn factory, for those of you that haven't been following it on social media, was devastated by fire on Friday. So important that that business remains a thriving one, and to hear the Fenn family first of all being struck by that fire in East London was really devastating to hear. But I was super excited to see a note on social media from the Fenn family basically saying to Matt, who's racing his heart out in the junior ranks here, "You go, boy. I mean, don't be distracted by the disaster that's befallen us at home. We're super proud of what you've achieved," and he's put together 2 really good days of racing. So back to the under-16s. This is the start of the boys. We had a look at the girls, and off the under-16s go into the distance. And again, it's this is the under-14 race, actually. Under-14s, super competitive, heads down, dog-eat-dog racing. All these youngsters wearing life jackets. You see the senior marathoners and the older age groups aren't required to do so, but the guppy paddlers, which are the under-12s and under-10s and under-8s, are all wearing life jackets, and under-14s all wearing life jackets. A good thing. And off they go. In KwaZulu-Natal, as a union and with the support of their Department of Sport, doing a fantastic job in getting the next generation of youngsters safely through the ranks. The youngsters extremely proud to be selected for their team, their provincial team, to come through to the national champs, and many of them will actually wear their racing kit for the remainder of the day, even though it hasn't dried and it's chilly up here in Johannesburg. But it's just a reflection of the level of seriousness and the pride that they attach to this. Also great to see the level of support for these races a little bit earlier in the day. For a lot of these under-14s, there's great recognition for them from their schools and from their provinces. They're going to get their junior provincial colours, and most of their schools will recognise them. And it's so important, actually, that the schools, even though canoeing is still regarded as a minor sport in South Africa, up against sports like cricket, soccer, netball, tennis, basketball. So back to the women's race as they come into the portage. Bridget Hartley, Jenna Ward, the 2 left at the front. Absolutely no pressure on Jenna. Jenna gets out quietly. Bridget actually having the patience to take the nose of her boat backwards so that it didn't get under Jenna's arm. That's a courtesy on her behalf. She was first out on that portage as Jenna loses her peak as she goes through the seconding zone. Late afternoon here, the shadows are starting to get longer and longer, and the temperature plummets here as we head past 3 o'clock. By 4 o'clock, it will be cold out on the water, and that's going to be the sharp end of this race. Bridget Hartley running very comfortably down the portage. Jenna puts in, as she's always done, nice and early. She's going to race the rest of her race without her peak cap, but it's not going to be a train smash here. Temperature is not going to be an issue. She's not going to worry about the sun on her face. As Bridget Hartley leads them away, Jenna goes out on her outside. So senior women finishing their 5th lap in their 5th portage and heading out onto lap number 6. As you see from the caption on the screen, they're going to be racing 9 laps, 7 of those on portages. And now we can give you a sense of just how far back Nikki Burkett is, because she is all on her own. Very measured, and what you do know about Nikki Burkett is you find a very determined competitor. She is charming and humble, but a very determined competitor. And she's going to finish this race, particularly after having to digest the disappointment of having to pull out of the short distance marathon race yesterday because she was feeling unwell. Even though she's completely on her own, She is going to finish this race, but back at the front, Bridget Hartley leading them around the bottom turn through the trees here at Cradle Moon. Jenna Ward. Jenna's whole family is cheering on from the sidelines here. Younger brother Jace, one of her most vocal supporters. Bridget Hartley up front, originally from Richards Bay. Big surfer when she started out. Her first taste in water sport was as a surfer. She still loves getting out onto the surf on her surfboard. And then got lured into sprinting as a standalone discipline at a time when sprinting was really not cool among South African women. Trained up in Johannesburg, Tikkies, in the cold, up with Nando Almasi, the Hungarian coach, and took her to great success. It took her all the way to that bronze medal, which will forever be etched against her name, Olympic Games in 2012. And there's a shot of Nikki Burkett all on her own. Paddles go down for Nikki. Oh, I hope that's not a bad sign. Nix is probably just composing herself, maybe just getting her juice sorted out as she heads off at the start of lap 6 in the women's race. And that gives you a sense of just how far ahead the other two women are. So really, really disconcerting for her to have to look that far up course and realize that she's completely on her own. But for Nikki, she's been on the bounce back from having the baby. So sacrifice by making sure that she's home and nurturing Davey and looking after his best interests. And she's been itching to get back into the boat and back into competition, more importantly. She's part of a really vibrant setup down in East London where the training is good. A little bit of a push coming from Bridget Hartley there. Jenna Ward shadowing her. Now back up front. Here's that 11-time world's champion, Hank McGregor, with Nikki Norton sitting on the outside. Is Nikki Norton the heir apparent? We've seen how successful he's been at an under-23 level. Andy Burkett comes around the outside of Nikki Norton. And this group is still big. Callum Davis scratching to stay on the back of it there. Clint Cook sitting on the diamond. Stu Little, another one of the under-23s on the left of your screen. So the group's still big. Stu McLaren has kept himself in position A throughout and is looking deceptively strong. So still 8 boats in that front bunch, Ant. I'm surprised. I thought that would have been shaken up a bit more.
Yeah, it says one of two things. It's either the pace is slow, which to me it doesn't look like it's slow, or the quality is high, and this looks like very high quality racing.
Nikki Norton spent a lot of this race looking around. He's a very chill guy. He's a very laid-back sort of character. We know he's a very good competitor. But he's just sort of running a rule over the rest of this bunch. In fact, there's some proper banter going on between him and Stu McLaren.
Yeah, him and Stu train together in Cape Town. They're paddling doubles together tomorrow, so they'll be on the same wavelength. But yeah, Nick does seem very relaxed. We know he's got a lot of power. We've watched him race internationally. And yeah, maybe he's just confident at this stage.
In that last shot, 3 suppliers packages. Stu Little, very comfortable in there. But Luke Stoneman at the back there, great afternoon for him.
Yeah, it's great to see Luke there. Hank taking out first. Misses his boat slightly, but it doesn't affect him at all. Clint Cook again, a perfect takeout. Stu Little also perfect. Nick Norton relaxed. Callum Davis there. Clint Cook is really impressing me today. I must say he's in and out of that boat. Very, very slick. Hank's put in a big burn on this run. It's come straight to the front. He's putting in first.
Clint Cook is in second.
This could be something from Hank right here.
Andy's going to have to wait for Hank to go before he puts in his boat. So Andy's actually been held up in the traffic. Hank goes. Clint Cook stays with him. This could be a break.
This could be 2 boats away. This is,
Oh, and who's gone in?
Stu McLaren.
Stu McLaren's gone in. Stu McLaren is in the water at the end of the portage. So up front is Hank McGregor. Stu McLaren. Oh, he's going to have to swim it back. That's it. It's overs Cadovers.
That's high pressure racing right there. I'm not sure if they had a clash, but that's very sad for Stu.
Oh, that's devastating. Stu McLaren effectively out of this race. Hank has gone. Clint Cook has stayed with him. Andy Burkett is behind him. And Nick Norton is having to do quite a bit of work to catch up to them in 4th. But this might be the move that shakes up 8-4 very quickly.
Definitely.
And Stu McLaren, we were just saying how composed and how measured he's been throughout this race.
Yeah, what a pity.
Gone in a millisecond.
What a pity. Hank's still going hard at the front there, showing that he needs to put the pressure on. Nick Norton just making contact, almost there. The pace is hard, but we definitely have a split now. We've got 4 boats at the front and the second group forming behind of the younger paddlers. We've got Stu Little, Luke Stoneman, and Callum Davis at the back there, and very, very sad to see Stu McLaren emptying his boat here at the jetty.
Measure of the man, I've got absolutely no doubt he'll get back into that boat and will do his level best to get back into...
Maybe not,
and there's
Dave.
a bit of a bump going and there's some bumper bashing going, and you don't want to prod this bear too much because Clinton Cook is nudging the back of Hank's boat quite aggressively there to try and get around the outside of him, and Hank doesn't forget that.
No, he won't. But I think Clint was just making sure he didn't lose much ground there. He wanted to come around as closely to Hank as possible. But yeah, Clint's gone back up onto first wave there. Andy's setting a good pace. Mick onto the diamond. And this is our front four.
Big move, and a very sympathetic round of applause from the crowd here as Clint gets away from the portage. At least as Stu McLaren gets away from the portage. And he's not going to have a chance to prove himself in a K1 this year. Which
it's a pity, yeah. And I think Stu is paddling really well at the moment. The big bonus is that he is paddling K2 with Nick Naughton tomorrow, and that is a very strong combination. So Stu's going to have to make a call now. Is it worth carrying on and just settling for a reasonable pace, using it as training, or does he conserve every ounce of energy for tomorrow's race?
Handbrake on for Andy Burkett. He's taken the pull up to the top. Hank McGregor, just before he went to the frontier, was looking over his shoulder. He'll be comfortable that it's 4, because that's what you need right now for a couple of laps.
Yeah, a bunch of 4 works a lot more cleanly. There's a lot less pressure when you get to the portages. A lot less can go wrong. So this bunch will roll with 4, at least until the next portage, but it's a lot more comfortable having a bunch of 4 on the front.
And it's rolling at speed. Hank is going to keep this honest, certainly for the next couple of minutes or so.
Yeah, Hank is fit at the moment. He's just come back from the Wildcard Challenge, where he just pipped Corey Hill in an amazing tussle there, showing that he's on great form. So we know fitness isn't a problem. And he surprised us yesterday with his turn of speed in the short course. So he seems to be well-rounded at this stage.
You know what's amazing about that, Ant, is that Hank has been training in that his Molokai is very serious. His ultimate goal this year, if I was to cut through all this clutter, is to win the surf ski world title. I think that's the one missing thing on his CV, and it's clearly his first priority. But he basically spent months training in his ski, has hardly jumped back into that marathon boat, and it's business as usual.
Yeah, but that boat fits like a glove to him. He spent a lot of time in a marathon K1, so he's very comfortable in it. But yeah, it just shows how easy he can convert it. Just he's obviously paddling with a very similar technique in his marathon boat to a surf ski, or he can adapt really, really well and adjust his style to the different craft. But he's very strong at the moment, without a doubt. And he's here because he's confident. He missed last year, and he's back because he's confident. So he hasn't come here to come second. So I'm enjoying this race, and it's going to get more and more exciting as we get closer towards the finish.
That Molokai victory was actually remarkable. He smashed the race record simply because the conditions were huge. They were absolutely massive. Was leading Corey coming into that technical bit past China Wall, and then made a mistake where he actually paddled over a reef with huge swell running, paddled over a reef, clattered it into his paddles, actually had to turn his boat sideways to prevent it from being smacked onto the reef and potentially damaged. Got chucked out of his boat, looked around. Corey saw it, and he knew that the door was back open, and Hank, through all that drama and all the pressure of potentially breaking a Molokai record and winning it, took 15 seconds to get back into the boat, gone, and went on to win it.
Yeah, it was a great race. Molokai is one of those surf ski iconic races, which year after year it's very prestigious. So another great win for Hank there.
Alan Houston coming into the put-in of the portage here. Younger brother of Andrew Houston. They're a great doozy combination. They're sizing up a berg in a couple of weeks' time. Alan going to be racing with Stu Little actually in the berg. It's going to be an interesting combination.
It's a nice strong combination. They'll be up against the defending champions Graham Solomon and Adrian Boris. Adrian's from Hungary. They won last year. And just watching how Stu's paddling today, and Al Houston's also he's very strong. So they'll give them a good run for their money in the Berg River in a few weeks' time.
So welcome back if you have just joined us at this stage. We've just gone past the halfway park in the senior men's and senior women's K1 race being held at the Cradle Moon Lake, which is in Mildersdrift, to the northwest of Johannesburg, close to the Yixka and Crocodile rivers. Part of town that a couple of years ago was a pretty deserted part of the West Rand of Johannesburg, now totally taken ownership of by the people of Joburg. It is just full of trail runners and mountain bikers, paddlers, swimmers, you name it, walkers, hikers. They've really just moved into this beautiful corner of this Cradle of Mankind heritage site. Up in the distance, you'll see 4 boats are back at the front, and Stott, you want to try and run a rule over this 4 and what is likely to happen in the next 15 to 20 minutes, because in there you have Hank McGregor, Andy Burkett, K1 and K2 world champions over the last couple of years.
Yeah, Nick Naughton, we've been watching him come up. He's been training under Peter Cole in the Cape, that Orca squad, and we've watched him race at Worlds. He's just able to dig so deep and give it everything, and he's been training hard. He's getting older, he's getting stronger. He's bound to bounce to the top soon. He's a really strong under 23 paddler. So, yeah, Hank and Andy are pretty set in stone. They've been around for a long time. But yeah, Nick and Clint's the up and coming guys. And again, they're so hungry to make this team. They're going to give it everything. But it's very hard to beat the experience of Hank and Andy in this kind of racing.
Looking at Andy Burkett's technique, it's quite distinctive. You can spot him in a bunch. And I'm going to wind back the clock to the days when a young, and I'm going to choose my words carefully, a gawky Andy Burkett was racing the wise old doozy dog Anstott into the finish at Blue Lagoon, and one of the best finishes in the men's race ever. And we looked at Andy's technique and said, how can you be that fast with that technique? But
yeah, it's a very sore point, Dave, but I think his arms were about half the thickness of what they are now as well, so it was quite embarrassing for me. But jeepers, the heart of that guy is just something else. And don't judge his technique by what his paddle's doing in the air, because it's doing something very special in the water. It's really providing him a lot of power and efficiency as he propels his boat forward.
it must be said that Andy, who arrived as a specialist doozy paddler, started expanding his horizons and did start working really hard on his technique and was taking advice from some really good sources. But he has still got the core of that there.
Definitely, yeah. He spent some time. He did a sprint season and worked on his power and his speed. And yeah, he's really, as he's put on muscle, he's got faster and faster and faster. And as a result, he's the current world champion, double world champion at this stage. And he's got a good turn of speed in him as well.
Going back to Maritzburg College, you're claiming that as college's handwork, is it?
Definitely Maritzburg College. You know, Maritzburg College has the advantage of being on the banks of the Doozy River, so they brought up in that hype of watching the Doozy. They've got the sprint course there. They've got the World Marathon Champs course from 2017 on their doorstep. The college boys, they walk down to the water's edge and train every afternoon. They don't even need to drive there. And that breeds a culture of paddling success.
So lap 6 and into the portage, the two leading women come. This is pretty much your gold and silver decided. Bridget Hartley, same old. Jenna's gone slightly longer. Happy to take out second and shadow Bridget down on the portage. I was looking at Hank Takeout a little bit earlier. He's one of those paddlers who's never put a handle on his boat. A lot of the international level paddlers are happy to put that carry handle on exactly at the right balance point on the cockpit. And it does seem to make sure that you minimize the risk of bouncing that rudder on the portage and you know, just remove the possibility of damage.
Yeah, I think it obviously depends on the shape of the inner lip of your cockpit, and that boat he's paddling's obviously got a really nice lip, so he hasn't had to worry about it. I tried for years paddling without a handle on my boat, and then when I got a bit older and started getting a bit tired, I decided to try the handle. I must say, it's quite comfortable. It's quite a nice thing to run with. There's less strain on the forearm, but obviously Hank has nice strong forearms and his cockpit is comfortable, and it's just less to worry about, less to go wrong. You can miss a handle. If you're going for a portage and you're trying to get your boat out, you can miss a handle. If there's no handle there, you've got a whole cockpit to aim for and grab. So it does also make it a little bit easy potentially. But yeah, I would never say that it's a problem, because it doesn't slow Hank down in any way.
I must admit, if anybody was going to make a theme song for the Hank McGregor story when it does finally come to an end, and that's probably about 30, 40 years away, it'll probably be I Did It My Way. The number of times he went overseas, he was just using different kit, different racing tactics. He just did it entirely his own way, and it was often in conflict to what the expectation of the norm was, especially from the European paddlers.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
he just defiantly did it his own way.
Yeah, one of the first big changes that he made was, to international paddling, not South African paddling, was he competed in the World Marathon Championships in Singapore with an overstern rudder and pedals. Now, that was unheard of in marathon paddling. All flat water paddlers always use the T1 and understern. In those conditions in Singapore, it really helped him, and he annihilated the field. He broke away by one stage on like the second or third portage. I think he had about a minute lead on guys like Manuel Busto and I can't remember who else was there, but there was a really strong field. And then he almost like tapped back a bit, waited for the bunch, and then we thought, well, has he actually got it in him? And we got to the end sprint and he won it. So that was with pedals and an overstern, which is very unusual for flat water marathon paddling.
And what amazed me was the response from his boat manufacturer in Durban, who just said the phone is ringing off the hook. The world now wants to get hold of this boat with an overstern rudder and a pedal setup.
Yeah, no, it was great for Kayak Centre. It was great for them to get a world champion in their boat. But yeah, it's Nello's been at the forefront of marathon paddling and sprint paddling for years now. They're the Ferrari of flat water boats. But great for South Africa as a country to have manufacturers who can produce world-winning boats, which is fantastic.
So over the last few minutes, we've had a chance to have a look at Nix Russell completing her portage. Looking tired, but she's going to grind this one out. And back at the front, those are the two women who are going to be deciding gold and silver, and that will be your South African team to China in October for the World Marathon Champs. on a course that nobody really knows anything about in Shaoqing.
I think Andy and I think Bridget went over a year or two ago to go and race. Oh, they've changed the course apparently, but they did go and race a race over there, and it sounded like quite a bouncy course, but I've just got feedback that potentially it's not on that course anymore, which is great. So, yeah, no one knows much about it.
Portage. Hank McGregor once again coming into the drink zone. Clint Cook has a look at Hank. And Hank has put his boat down. He's doing some work at the back of his boat. So Hank McGregor is off the back of this group. He's doing a rudder repair. I thought I saw his rudder sitting at a strange angle when he took up for the last portage. Now Hank has actually stopped. Luke Stoneman running without a boat apparently.
We've got a back mark in the way there as Nick Notton gets in.
Luke's got a helper, that's right, that's spot on. So Nick Notton gets away. Clint looks over and everybody's a little bit phased by the fact that there's no Hank on the sponge. Andy's looking over his shoulder. They're really good mates. So Andy will
you can see
not
there's no urgency there. They know Hank's right there. They're not going to work him. Obviously, with the technical, it's always hard to break away from a world-class athlete like Hank for a technical reason. So they've given them the opportunity to work his way back without putting him under too much pressure, which is great sportsmanship.
Yeah, it's proper. I hope Hank has been able to repair that. He had 5 seconds to try and straighten that runner. I hope it's fully functional at this stage. I did notice as he came out of the previous portage that there was a bounce on the tail of the boat and the rudder just looked like it was sitting bent slightly to one side. So hopefully that rudder pin has been up to the correction which he put in there, and it's not going to cause any more admin, because there is nothing more frustrating than seeing a marathon race being affected by technicals on a boat.
Totally. And you can see Nick Notton, he's kind of going for it, but he's not 100%. He's giving Hank a small opportunity, but he is still making him work, because obviously if he does get, he can use this opportunity to put Hank on a little bit of pressure and just sap a little bit of energy. But what's interesting there is that Luke Stoneman and Stuart Little are getting an opportunity to get pulled back out to the front group here potentially.
Yeah, exciting times for Luke. And as you saw Luke on that portage, just full respect for the man. You know, because of his situation, he's got a helper on those portages, and he's right up there. So Nick Notton paddles down here. I think the chat here is, well, guys, let's wait for Hank to get back on the group. Andy says, I'm fully with that. We're chilling. Clint is trying to get a bit jumpy at the front there, but I think Nick has said, we're chilling. Hank is going to realize that there's no point. In fact, that's the nose of Hank's boat coming into the picture at the moment.
Yeah,
there
I'm
he
glad
goes.
to see him back there. Yeah, Clint going at a reasonable pace. He's not killing it. He's also just giving the group a chance to regroup. And we should potentially have a group of up to 5, maybe 6 again. Just see the nose of Luke Stoneman there, back on the group. And Stu Little potentially, I didn't see him there.
And there's Stu, he's done. Well, we did say the man would give it his all, but I think he's devastated. As an elite athlete, and you know, when you've trained for something and a millisecond disaster like that just pulls the legs out from under your race, I mean, it's like a kick in the solar plexus.
It is a massive pity, and we spoke about it a bit earlier, but I'm just thankful that Stu does have another chance tomorrow with Nick Notton in the doubles. And let's hope he can prove himself tomorrow. But it's very sad to see a guy who's put in so much effort walking away before the end of the race.
Well, and I think I'm going to might discharge you from your seat to see if you can maybe go and have a quick chat to Stu and just see how it was going and how he's feeling. Because from a man who quite legitimately could have been let's have a look at this. Is coming into the portage that eventually cost Stu his place. So let's have a look at this portage again. It was fine on the takeout. He was 4th. He ran all the way through it all. And let's see if our camera was able to pick up. I'm going to let Ant go down to Stu and see if he can have a quick word to Stu, having withdrawn on lap 8. Hank McGregor ran that one really hard. In fact, that is actually where Hank put the damage into his... No, it wasn't. It was the next portage that he did that. So Andy getting his boat a little bit sideways. And now Stu is on the extreme left-hand side of your screen. You just can't see him on that screen. But you can just hear the howls from the crowd watching when they saw Stu go into the water. And then there's an immediate anticipation that something has gone wrong from the front bunch, because Clint Cook works out first and then looks over his shoulder, and there he is. Stu's in the water, and you cannot imagine the mental anguish and torment that he would be feeling right now. He put it on the right-hand side, fell out on the outside of his boat, on the right-hand side of his boat, and you very quickly saw the rest of the bunch casting an eye over it. Just one of those things that happens in marathon racing, and that's why it makes it such a compelling spectacle, and that's why the crowds all gather around the portages to sit and watch the drama, which inevitably unfolds and molds the outcomes of these races. So Ant is going to go down and find Stu and catch up with him in a couple of moments' time. So back up front, this big group has reformed. Great sportsmanship as they decided to wait for Hank McGregor to get back onto the bunch. That was largely engineered by Andy Burkett and Nick Naughton. They were happy to get back on, and there was a clear chat where I think Hank, when he got back onto that bunch, having ground hard, he got back onto the diamond. And I think the chat would have been, thanks, boys. A big smile from Nick Naughton, who was just to Hank's right when that happened. They've reformed. Andy Burkett at the front. Hank McGregor, Clinton Cook, Nick Naughton. Luke Stoneman, thrilled to be back on that front bunch again, and he's going to enjoy the ride with them for as long as it lasts. Venture to suggest it won't be that long. And just ahead of them, there's going to be a strange moment where Andy Burkett comes up to overtake his wife, Nikki Burkett, who's racing just ahead of them. She's been shrugged off by the front runners in the women's race, Bridget Hartley and Jenna Ward. And there's Nix in the front, just having taken that left-hand turn around the red boy. Big bunch at the front. We are on lap 8. 3 more portages to come. And then, of course, we've got that short lap. And while the women's race is pretty much a done deal in terms of gold, silver, the actual wearer of those gold and silvers have still got to be decided. That will probably come down to the final lap, maybe down even onto that last short lap. Jenna Ward, having run her mind through possibilities, I mean, she saw pretty quickly there was a realistic possibility that it was going to be down to herself and Bridget. Bridget, a sprinter by training, explosive over short distances. She's got that short-term burst of speed. So to beat her, you've got to be cunning. You're going to have to do something a little bit out the box and put the pressure on Bridget coming into that lap. If Bridget is leading at the end of that last portage, it's going to be very, very difficult to get past her. So Jenna's going to have to play her cards on one of the last 2 portages in the women's race, probably the last one, to see if she can get a slip ahead and then just grind for all she's worth. But back at the front of the men's race, there are 6 boats together. Luke Stoneman sitting on the back of that bunch. Andy Burkett happy to slip back onto the diamond. Nick Naughton at the back there. Hank McGregor at the front. Clint Cook sitting on his left. McGregor looking super comfortable. Has a chance to look over his shoulder as he takes that sharp left-hand turn. And he'll see the group forming him. He'll see Nikki Burkett just ahead of them. Very measured pace. Literally going through the motions here. There's no attempt to try and shake off those 2 boats at the back. Nick Naughton very wide on that group. Luke Stoneman happy to sit at the back. And Andy Burkett sitting on the diamond. Great place to be at this stage in the game. Stu Little looking very comfortable on the outside. Nick Naughton coming in. And you've had a chance to see Stu as he's disconsolately stomped off the course.
I saw Stu McLaren briefly. He's extremely disappointed. He said he was just feeling so comfortable on the group and everything was just going so well. But yeah, very, very sad to have this happen to him. But yeah, fortunately there's tomorrow, but he's extremely disappointed with what happened to him. And yeah, he's going to have to pick up the pieces and move forward and try and be as strong a man as he can be tomorrow for the doubles.
Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but how often have we heard this start to the story end up with somebody being so fired up and so galvanized with the opportunity to redeem yourself on the day following that they just come out of the blocks hot and they're fantastic.
We know he's going to be hungry tomorrow and he's going to give it everything he can to make sure that he gets selected for Worlds.
And that's a great combo in itself. So, I mean, it's a boat that you'd be looking forward to doing well. Hank McGregor, Andy Burkett at the front. Good mates now. I mean, they made a great K2 combination. There was a stage when Andy Burkett started arriving and tampering with the Hank McGregor scene when they weren't the best of friends.
Yeah, no, it's never nice being knocked off your pedestal, Hank. He's been very gracious though, and once or twice, it wasn't very often, but Andy beat Hank in an end sprint. But Hank was very gracious, very always complimenting Andy on a great race and just really being a gracious loser. But I don't think Hank's come back here to come second. I really don't. He's come back here to win, and he's come back confidently, and he's come back strong.
Well, Hank McGregor, for those of you that have followed his career, ultra competitive as a junior, really didn't know what was expected as his place as a junior barking in the senior ranks. Grew up with the mantra that first is first, and second is nothing. And that's a really healthy competitive spirit. But I think we've enjoyed seeing Hank mellow as a human being,
Definitely.
and get progressively more successful as he moved through his 30s, and now settling down, getting married. He's got 2 kids at home, super happily married. Everything is good for Hank, and he's just as dangerous.
He's
as ever.
very relaxed. He's very relaxed now. I think it comes with confidence as well, obviously. But I think having children and getting married is quite life-changing. Your perspective and your priorities change a bit, but Hank is still an amazing threat on the water. He's very strong, and he's just doing it in a slightly more relaxed way.
That's exactly what you were talking about, missing the grab on the handle. So Bridget luckily is able to recover from that and doesn't concede any ground. But as she got out, she just missed the grab on the handle of the boat of her Nello. But it's same old, same old. She's first out of the water. She leads these portages. And Jenna, who's been working on her portages, just happy to shadow Bridge. Bridge will run long. Jenna will put in short. Jenna will get away quickly. And they'll be able to reform. So that's lap 8, which means they've got 2 more portages to go. Bridge gets away comfortably. Jen, who's very handy at giving a strong push off the jetty to make sure that she gets away and gets her first paddle stroke in deep and clean. And they will reform.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful, beautiful late afternoon. We're having here at Cradle Moon, and the water's getting glassy. The sun is out. It's warm. The day's been warmed up. The ice from this morning's melted away. And yeah, it's great racing conditions for a winter in Johannesburg. We're very lucky to have these warm conditions for the senior racing this afternoon.
So women's race on to lap number 8.
He still does. He still does.
So 2 more portages to go in the women's race. I suspect the first one is going to be uneventful. I think the second one will be. It'll be a belter.
Yeah,
It'll be an
we've just seen the front
cracker.
bunch paddle past Nikki Burkett there, Andy Burkett on the lead. We wonder if anything was said about who's feeding the baby or babysitting later. But that would have been an interesting chirp if Andy said something when he paddled past his wife there.
And he does tell me he's a champ of the nappy, though.
I've seen him change a nappy. He's pretty quick.
I think he would take a swipe at you if you heard this conversation right now. Nick Naughton on the outside. I'm running Nick as a serious threat here. He's looking super comfortable. He's kept his nose clean throughout this race, and is looking very composed and very measured. Clint Cook has also done it all. He's done a lot of the pulling from the front, though.
Clint's been consistent. He's really been slick. Every portage in smooth, out the boat so smoothly, in the boat so smoothly, always in the right place. So if a break happens, Clint's always the guy in the right place. So he's ready for a break.
Okay, and that's Clint actually putting in a little bit of a burst to try and get inside of Andy Burkett as they come to the portage. He's going to take out right at the beginning. Very quick
Perfectly
takeout from
again.
Clint. And there he's gone. This could be a useful break for Clint. If he's going to try and assert himself, Hank is comfortable just to chug through this portage. Nick Naughton in the orange boat running hard. Andy Burkett senses that there might be something on the cards here, and he wants to be part of it. Great portage from Clint. That is exceptional work from Clint. Andy Burkett putting in just behind him. Nick Naughton's going to be putting in third. Hank McGregor jumps over his boat. Stu Little putting in on the right. And Clint is getting away.
Comfortably with not much effort. It's just that efficiency of getting in and out the boat. He's making up so much time by just being clean, and it's giving him a chance to break away and make the guys work a bit every single time, which adds up. After a few laps, it definitely adds up.
So Clint happy to make the others catch up at this stage. It would be foolhardy to try and break at this point.
Yeah, definitely. You can see Andy Burkett there is not making much effort to close the gap. He's quite relaxed. He knows Clint's not going to go at it on his own. Hank on the back of that group too, very relaxed. And Clint just spending some time at the front.
He has made a point, though. He's just shown everybody what he's capable of and flexed his muscles, and they will all have taken notice.
For sure. But interesting to watch Hank on that portage. He took out so relaxed and casually at the back, got a bit of a gap. There was a bit of a gap formed over him, but he just sped up his legs a bit and was right back on again. So he's also got a lot of zip left in the tank.
Hank is a deceptive runner, just like his paddle stroke, actually. It looks languid, but it's extremely efficient. He's quick on the run. It doesn't look it, though.
Yeah, deceptive if you don't know it. But you'll never take Hank for granted if you know what his leg speed is capable of doing and how fast he can actually go when it counts. So even if he is at the back of a portage on a takeout, you know he can get to the front. So he's just in control all of the time.
I think anybody who's followed those McGregor legs up a portage on the doozy will know what he's capable of doing.
No, he's a good runner in his own right. Since school days, he pulls us some very fast times on the road and on the track. but a lot of these guys do as well. They're all very good runners.
Okay, we flipped into cruise control mode right now in the front bunch. Clint Cook, who has done more than his fair share of the pulling at the front, and we'll have to see whether that affects the number of matches he's got to burn at the end of this race. But Hank and Andy just loping along quietly in the background.
I just want to point out Luke Stoneman again at the back of the group there. He's paddling a standard riverboat. The riverboats, definitely the setup, there's a bit of flex, that they're not as rigid, so they lose a bit of power through the stroke when the guys are paddling them. I would say, I don't want to suck out too many numbers, but like 10-15%, I've always said personally that a riverboat is slower than a rigid carbon flat water boat. So to be there in a riverboat is actually phenomenal.
There's so many subtext to this race which are just so exciting, so encouraging. And somebody will go onto the Facebook album tonight and say, there I am, I'm going to tag myself. Oh, on my left is Hank McGregor, Andy Burkett, 2 world champions. These are the dogs I'm barking with right now. Hank McGregor, 11 times world champion, reigning K2 world champion. Andy Burkett, reigning K1 and K2 champion. Stick your neck out your hand. How long are we going to see Andy Burkett racing at this level?
Yeah, Andy, he's relatively young compared to Hank, obviously, but he has been racing for quite a while. I think it's up to him, really. As long as he keeps enjoying it, he'll keep going. And at the moment, he seems to be enjoying it. So, yeah, I'd say another good few years he's got in him. But I think maybe moving to East London's gonna keep the fire burning. It's a nice change. A beautiful river there at Nahoon. There's a great bunch of guys to train with. So I think as long as he's happy, he's going to keep training, keep performing. And there's no reason to stop at this stage.
And the cross training, I believe, is now surf ski, running with the pram, and kite surfing.
And that must all help, except for the kite surfing. That's high-risk stuff. That team must definitely stop.
Nick Naughton, in terms of us assessing his stepping out of the under-23 ranks and moving into the seniors, has got to get a lot of boxes ticked today.
Yeah, it's great to see Nick racing, and we've watched how hard he is as a surf ski paddler in a K2, in a K1 under 23, and he shows he's with these guys. He's not slower, he's not weaker. He's looking comfortable, he's looking confident, and he's made the grade. He's here with 2 of the world's best paddlers, Hank McGregor and Andy Burkett, and he's not out of the depth at all. He's one of them.
Yeah, he's looked totally unfazed by the stage that he's on at this point in time, which gives you a lot of confidence as somebody who's trying to steer our national marathon team in the right direction. I mean, whether he makes this team this year or next year, it's a matter of when, not if.
For sure.
But he seems to have the head and the composure, which is the one thing you actually can't really teach. You've either got it in the heat of competition or you haven't, and he looks like he's got it in chunks. He's not going to get flustered in the heat of competition.
He definitely has, yeah.
Also great encouragement for the Cape Town crew, where some great work is being done. I mean, you want to see your numbers right up there.
Yeah, no, Pete Cole's done a great job with his squad down there, and Nick's one of the key players there. And there's so many strong paddlers in that group of his. A pity to see Stu McLaren drop out there. He would have been here on this group. He would still be here. It'd still be comfortable. So it's a big pity and a loss for him. But Stu's also relatively young. He's got a lot of years ahead of him. There's no reason for him to stop. And we'll see a lot of Stu in the future as well.
Stu McLaren and Stu Little, another one of the characters that we were talking about, who's really put his hand up here. I mean, the under-23s having raced a good race already on the weekend, saying, no, this is my opportunity to cut my teeth at the highest level, and he's really done good.
Yeah, Stu's actually battled a bit with illness this year. He had a virus which he's just recovered from. So he was actually in doubt whether he was going to be here or not. So when I spoke to him a week or 2 ago, I said, Stu, are you racing? He says, I've just got to get the green light from the doctor. And he obviously has. And just in time, and here he is racing on the front group of the senior race at SA Marathon Champs.
Stu's right in the center of that shot there, and I think we'll be absolutely loving it. Younger brother Scotty was racing earlier, and by being the younger, Scotty's a great player as well, but by being the younger brother, no matter how well he's doing, and he was doing real good. He's taking rival debuts from Stu and all his mates, but I think you've got to wear that. So it's Nicky Naughton who's gone to the front now in the orange boat. Stu Little we were chatting about. Stu's born and raised in Underberg. Scotty Little, his younger brother. Now taking a lot of guidance from some of these senior paddlers in KZN, but just just loving everything about the sport. So let's catch up with Stu Little as he was getting ready to enter his SA Marathon Champs as a senior racer in 2019.
That's kind of testing the Hank and Andys of this world. You want to test yourself against guys that good.
Yeah, definitely. It's always inspiring paddling even next to those guys. Having Hank coming in, training with us, it's so inspiring. And just to up that level, if you know what I mean, just to get in there, bark with the big dogs, world champions, nothing better than to train with them and race against them.
If you want to test how good you are, the obvious way is to check your times. You get out there, train, you look at the times you're doing, but that doesn't replicate getting into a competition with these oaks.
No, it's completely different. I mean, this has nothing to do with times. This is going flat out, then complete stop. It's all about intervals, strength, power. So yeah, racing and times are two completely different things.
Expectations, what do you want out of today?
Oh, just to have fun, eh? My berg partner, Al and I, are just going to go get some distance in. But yeah, just going to have fun. Yesterday was the main race. I didn't quite do what I wanted to. So yeah, today is just about having fun, giving it a shot, eh?
If you get a chance to find a Hank or an Andy and you can put them under some stress?
Oh, definitely, eh? Portages maybe. I think that's our strong point. But no, Hank and Andy, world champions. It's going to be tough, but yeah, just going out there, have some fun, give it a go if I get a chance. But yeah, main goal is to just get some distance in.
Hank says this is the toughest national marathon world championships in the world, and that's what you're going to be in the thick of.
Oh, definitely. You got guys, Hank and Andy, obviously, Clint Cook, Stu Mack, Nick Knotson, all been right up there. So, yeah, it's going to be a loaded field.
Most of all, have fun.
Oh, thanks so much, Dave. Cheers.
Just wanting to have fun. He said, you know, if he finds himself up a line alongside Hank McGregor and Andy, but that's exactly what you're seeing on the shot. Look at the centre, Andy Burkett to his left on screen, Hank McGregor to his left, Stu Little.
And just the only one missing there is Stu McLaren, unfortunately. But I'd love to know how much fun he's having right now and how much he's hurting. But he actually looks quite comfortable. But I'd love to put a mark on his face right now and say, Stu, are you having fun? But I'm sure the answer would be yes. He's just happy to be here with these guys.
He's not going to back down, I'll tell you that for free. Marisburg College, I'm just going there.
Yeah, it's a good school.
And the most relaxed looking face on that bunch is Nick Knotton, just unfazed by what is going on around him. And if that is a sign of the amount of energy he's got in reserve as we head into the closing section of lap 9 and into the penultimate, that's a good sign for him. Now let's catch up with how the women's race is going. It's been a two-boat affair for virtually the entire race after Nikki Burkett fell off the bunch. Bridget Hartley, Jenna Ward, coasting away together. They've kept that pace honest throughout. 2 is not a great number because you can't really help each other at any stage. You've just got to grind away the miles and effectively keep each other motivated. There's not much else you can do.
Yeah, the only benefit for 2 here is that 2 make the team. But to win this race, it's going to be tough for both of them. It's going to be tactical towards the end. It's hard to put someone in a difficult situation. It's hard to know when to work hard. It's basically if there's a slip up on a turn or a takeout or a put in, the other paddler is going to up the ante and put the one on the back foot under a bit of pressure. But other than that, it's just clean racing as it is, and not much is happening. But they're still going at a reasonable pace.
You know what's interesting, and look at the styles of the 2 girls in shot at the moment, because okay, one is racing I think a quattro, one is racing a cinco, but look at how Bridget bounces and rolls that boat. She's got a far more physical stroke. Jenna's is far more linear and far more direct, and the boat sits down very steadily.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, Bridget, she's always been a little bit bouncy and rolly, which makes it a bit tricky to paddle in the K2. But lately she's got a lot smoother, and she's become an amazing K2 paddler. But yeah, Bridget's just getting a lot more power from her stroke, and that's why her stroke rate's a bit slow. It's efficient, it's powerful, and that's why it looks different. But you could probably put both in the boat together; they'll probably go well. The paddles going through the water are both efficient. But yeah, Bridget looking very relaxed, running down the portage. She's run well on every portage. She hasn't been under pressure. She's been out first, in first. And Jenna just following suit. She's also not too worried. She's in the right place. And she's always straight on the wave immediately as she puts in and pulls away from the jetty after every single portage.
Bridge looking over her shoulder just to make sure that Jenna's on her way. She should know by now that Jenna always chooses to go on the inside line for that turn can. And now the men heading into their penultimate portage. Andy Burkett in control of this group. Hank just behind them. Clint Cook going slightly longer.
Hank out first.
Nick Naughton caught on the outside, so he's going to be shadowing. Stu has run really well. Actually, the beauty is he's got that overstern set up on his boat, so he's happy to drag that boat. Doesn't have to nurse a rudder at all. Nick Naughton bouncing along and having to babysit that rudder, but Hank running so well as he does with the boat, gets down first, which means he has the option of choosing the put-in. He goes left. There's some urgency from Hank here. There's some urgency from Hank, and Clint is shadowing him. Nick has got a bit of work to do. Nearly loses it on the put-in. Andy Burkett gets away good and clean, but there's a bit of a move coming on. The bottom two are definitely being shaken off here. So that's the end of Luke Stoneman's company with the front group. Nick has got a bit of work to do because Hank has definitely rattled the cages here.
Yeah, Hank's put down the hammer there a bit. He's gone really hard. And like I said, Clint Cook, always in and out, so slick. If there's a break, he's going to be the one on it, so he's safe. Andy's back on there. And Nick's still right there. He's going to work his way back. He's tough. But he has put himself in a slightly tough position. But Hank's looked back. He's seen Nick off the pace. He may up it a notch here. But it's actually, Nick's in a tough situation here. But he has the power to get back. He really does.
I think the fun factor in Stu Little's day has just changed a little.
It definitely has. Yeah, it's now down to Stu and Luke.
And that group at the front is definitely being stretched.
Nick having to work hard now. You can see he's closing the gap finally now. He'll get back onto the group of fours. Hank's let up. It's Andy back to the front now. And Nick making contact just in time for Andy to take up the pull.
When Clint needs to, he's got a deceptive burst of speed to get back onto
He's
the
got
bunch.
a lot of zip. Yeah.
It'll be fascinating to see him in the mix if they come around the last turns on that short lap.
Yeah, Clint tactically has raced a brilliant race. He's kept himself out of the trouble. He's always in the right place at the right time. He's always covered the moves. And from a control point of view, he's really positioned himself well. And now Hank takes up the pull again and Clint's on his first wave, so it's working out well for him.
The intensity in this front bunch has changed in the last few minutes. We saw it on the expression of Andy Burkett's face as he pulled quite hard. Now he's tapped back onto the diamond to let Nick come up past him. But Hank is now looking around a lot more. There's far less casual banter going on in this front bunch now. This is lap 10 after all, so they've got one more portage and then the short lap. So I think courtesies are going to be a thing of the past. Hostilities are now going to be the name of the game for the next 15 minutes as Nikki Burkett, who's soldiered on valiantly on her own. It's been a long afternoon for her with absolutely no help.
Great for Nikki to see her still pushing through and not giving up. She's using it as a training session, saying that she's strong. Yeah, she's got a smile on her face. She's just doing the distance and getting through it. And it's not slow. She's a strong paddler. She's actually doing it well.
And she's a popular figure here. She's got a sort of legion of fans, whether you're going to a surf ski race or to a marathon race. And she's also one of the serial smilers in this game. You know, whenever you see her out in a training
Always
session
happy.
or in a race, there's always a smile on her dial. But off she goes. So she's got another full lap to come. Now let's have a look. There's Nick Naughton going to the front. Hank and Andy have said, off you go, lad. Nick's putting his juice in. Clint is on the outside.
Yeah, the reality here in this men's race is that obviously everyone wants to win, but there's only 2 slots available for the team. So 2 of these boats are not going to be going to China, which is sad when you look at the level and the quality of the paddlers here. So they're getting it a bit jumpy. They've got to make sure that they know what they're doing, and they've got to make sure they're in the right position coming up to these last few portages.
100%. In that shot on screen right now, there will be 2 places in the national team, 3 spots on the podium, 1 disappointed paddler.
Well, 2. I think a bronze
A
medal.
medal is some consolation.
Oh, I think China is the main goal here. A medal would be nice, but these guys want to go to China. They want to go to Worlds. They want to win medals at World Champs, and that's where South African paddling is at the moment. And I remember always thinking about Hungarian paddling, and we always used to talk about if you're in the Hungarian sprint team, you're guaranteed a medal. And South Africa's they're kind of setting that precedent with marathon paddling. We're bringing home medals year after year, so the guys know if they make the team, there's a good chance of coming home with a medal at World Champs. So it's really important for the guys to make that team and get a chance at a world title.
Interestingly, the guys are the 4 on the right of your screen catching up to the lead women. So they're going to have to go around them on this upward lap. But they'll find themselves under absolutely no pressure. And it's going to be one of those strange moments within a race when the races actually overtake one another. So this is lap 10 on the men's race, lap 9 on the women's race. Both of them have one portage to come. So it's probably quite a relief to the marathon officials that they're going to be passing each other on this lap, because the last thing you want is to have both races coming into the final portage at the same time.
For sure, but things now are starting to get tense. You've really got to position yourself perfectly for this final portage. It's really important because it's if there's going to be a break and two boats are going to get away or one boat's going to get away, it's going to be in the lead up to this portage, on this portage, or at the end of this portage. So coming around this last turn and setting up for the final portage is really important. And it'll be interesting to watch Hank and Andy with a bit more racing experience to see exactly how they position themselves on the group. It's not by chance. They're not just saying, oh, well, it doesn't matter if I'm left, if I'm right. They've thought way in advance which side of the bunch they want to be, where they want to be coming to their portage, and they're trying to set it up from now already.
It's a crazy shot, actually, because there's a leading women's race followed by the leaders in the men's race who've got one lap more to race, followed by a couple of other women, followed by some of the back markers in the men's race, all in one. That shot's by virtue of the fact that we've been racing on slightly shorter laps, more laps, shorter laps. I think it's made it quite entertaining, eh?
Yeah, it has. I wonder if they would actually catch the woman on a longer race. They might, but the shorter lap, it's been very exciting for the spectators because we see the paddlers a lot more. But just being out there this morning, it's quite nice to portage a little bit more often. It doesn't give the race a chance to really settle and the grind to get going, but it keeps it exciting. And it has kept it exciting. It's a great venue. I'm sure we'll come back here in the years ahead.
So welcome once again if you have just joined us watching the sharp end of the live streaming of the K1 races for the senior men and senior women at the South African Marathon Champs, coming to you live on the stream from Cradle Moon Lake, Mulder's Drift, west rand of Johannesburg, northwest of the city. Clint Cook going to the front as he turns to the top. Hank McGregor on his outside, Andy Burkett and Nick Norton. That's the four that are going to be contesting the final portage. They're just about to come up to, and we are taking as given that they will be overtaking the lead woman. You'll see on your bottom left of the screen, left is Bridget Hartley, paddling alongside Jenna Ward. They have run away from the other fields, from the other women in the field, and they will take home bronze and silver. The ultimate wearer of those two medals still to be decided, but that will be your national team to China in October. Men's race, however, is completely different. 2 places, 3 medals. And a really encouraging display of talent on there. And this portage, which is coming up right now, and is going to make or break it.
And you can see the setup of the group. Andy on the front, making sure he's out of trouble. Hank on his inside means he gets to the jetty on the inside of Andy in the first place. He can take out first if he's there on time. Nick Norton on the outside there, he'd have to come around Andy, and hopefully there's enough water there, but he's going to have to pedal a little bit further. And Clint Cook on the diamond, which isn't the best place to be coming into the final portage. But Hank and Andy experienced in the positions that they want to be in, and they've set this up a long way in advance.
And there's a chance they might get to the portage together. It'll be interesting. I'm pretty sure the women will be quite happy to crouch and hold for a second and just let the men go past. So, on your screen, the leaders and the men's and women's race at the South African Marathon Champs. On the left, it's Bridget Hartley and Jenna Ward, side by side as they have been for 90% of the women's race. And in the background, Andy Burkett leading a bunch of 4, including Nick Norton on his left, Hank McGregor on his right, and Clint Cook sitting comfortably on the diamond as they approach the final portage.
I'm very interested to see how Nick Norton handles this, because this could be his chance to show us how much speed he actually has got, because he may have to put in a bit of a burst of speed to get a good slot for the takeout. And if there's a chance to see what's going to happen before the finish, this could be it.
And Nick has been comfortably sitting on diamond, staying out of trouble, conserving energy, keeping matches dry. He may well have a surprise for us in the end of this race.
Yeah, and we're going to see very soon.
So they're coming past the women, so there's no risk of the clash in the portage that we were talking about. This is the top turn can, so now they've got that long pull down to the little right-hand turn.
Yeah, so Andy's chosen to pull for quite a long time. And if we go back to the days of Manuel Busto, he always pulled for at least 2 kilometers before the finish. And Andy's chosen to take this out far, be in the front, keep an eye out for boats coming up to his left or right. So it's very much the style of racing that Manuel Busto used to race back in the day. Hank on the other end, he can do either. He's got a lot of zip. He's often zipped past the guys right in the final few meters, but he also has got a good grind in him. So he can also do a long takeout, a long pull before the finish. But Andy's not taking chances here. He's pulling from way out before that final portage. And Nick Norton on his first wave there. And we're going to wait and see what Nick's got in the tank, but I think he's going to show us quite soon.
And there's an intensity creeping into the Hank McGregor stroke as well. You talked about Manuel Busta. I'm puzzled about who's watching this at the other end of a live stream. Pippa McGregor will be sitting in front of the TV with her kids watching all this very carefully. I know there are a whole bunch of the international paddlers who I've seen chattering about this race who will be enjoying every moment of this. So greetings to those international viewers. Come out here and race it one day. It'll be heaps good fun. There's the front four as they head into the portage. Andy Burkett, reigning K1 and K2 world champion. Hank McGregor on his right, on his left. Nick Norton. Clinton Cook, who has certainly lived up to the expectation of the Gauteng contingent, who've been watching him race so well since he moved up here at the beginning of the year.
Still about 400 meters to go before they get to that portage. These camera zooms are amazing that they get us so close to the paddlers from so far away. But still a bit that can happen between now and the portage. But at the moment things are looking calm, and it could stay that way. But I think the first move's either going to come from Hank or Nick Norton.
And that move will come into the portage. Thrilled to see that the admin that we saw Hank experiencing with his rudder has not been influential on his race. He's been able to sort of get past that. Maybe it was a miracle repair. He just had that instant rebend which got it back on track. If there is an issue, he certainly hasn't let it show at all. So here's the women's race. Jenna Ward, been so committed to trying to raise her standard of marathon racing. She's put in the hard yards and long miles of air travel to train overseas and race and compete. That amazing race a couple of weeks back where the number of laps she was racing was curtailed. Amazing stuff.
Seeing the men here. Andy's still looking very controlled. They're getting really close to that portage now. I think they're about less than 100 meters away. There's been no major movements. So, yeah.
Hank on the inside. Nick is going to have to go long.
Clint's dropping ground.
Clint is trying to go on the inside of Hank. This will be interesting. Hank sees
far.
it coming.
Hank's out first, it looks like.
So Hank very quickly out of the boat. Nick very quickly out of the boat. All four of them actually very quickly out of the boat. Nick Norton running hard. Hank dragging the tail of his boat as he comes down to the put-in. But it's a good run from Hank McGregor. This could be a chance to
Nick
try.
Norton right there.
So Nick puts in just behind Hank. Andy Burkett just behind him. Clint Cook has decided to go to the right. McGregor away quickly. Norton. Andy Burkett working hard to make sure that he can get on his inside. He wants to get ahead of Nick at the turn can, and he's done that. Game on.
And Bridget Hartley's had a phenomenal run here. She's run hard. She's actually opened some water, opened some space between her and Jenna.
That's a fantastic run from Bridget. Jenna a little bit slow at the takeout, and Bridget is now, and that's exactly what you don't want. You wanted to be able to get some sort of a tactical advantage over Bridge, who we know has got the raw edge when it comes to that burst of speed. So it's going to be a tough ball for Jen.
Yeah, we didn't see what happened to the takeout there, but we don't know if it was something that held Jen up. But Bridget at the moment has got a nice gap, and she's got an opportunity to pull away from Jenna here.
But it's back at the front. The men's race is coming down to the next couple of minutes. At the front, Hank McGregor, he loves it there, and he's so hard to displace from that position. On his left, you'll find Andy Burkett. On his right, Nick Norton. And if Clint is going to have to do something, he's going to have to do that from Diamond at this stage where he's got some waves to climb over.
Yeah, Hank looking very controlled now. We know he's got the fitness from Molokai, so he can hold this pace and a lot more before the finish. And he's in the position he wants to be. This is exactly where he wants to be. He can watch left and right and see a boat coming up from the side, and he's got the advantage at the moment.
Bridget is gone. She's sensed the advantage. Is going to decide the gold medal. And she is gunning it away, and she's got the power to be able to keep that pace up all the way through to the finish. But here we go. Morgan Ziervogel, one of the backmarkers in the ladies' race, is going to be a spectator to this end sprint here. But Hank McGregor is at the front. This is reminiscent of Maritzburg, where when you put Hank into this position, it is almost impossible to try and displace him.
It's very hard to come past in a senior race of this level. But, yeah, I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch. Andy has got a bit of zip. Nick, I'm sure, has been working hard on his zip. We know Clint's got zip, but he's stuck on the diamond. But Hank is in the position he wants to be in right now.
What you can see, Andy Burkett is breathing really deeply. I think he's trying to compose himself. He's trying to stockpile a little bit of energy there, and so that he's got something in those turbos when he pushes the button. But right now, a betting man would not err much further than going with Hank McGregor here. Andy will be on the inside of the turn, which will be the best chance that he's going to have to challenge.
Yeah, it's tough. I came around those turns this morning, and it's tough to get an advantage from the inside. The lead has definitely got the advantage on the turn. Andy's having to turn tight there. Stroke's a bit funny. You can see Hank's...
And Clint's gone inside of Andy, which is interesting. Very tight turn from Clint. He's going to have to squeeze in. He had to actually back off to let Andy through. Andy's got all rights to that, but now we turn for home. This is the final few hundred meters of the marathon champs. Andy has gone from a long way out. He's trying to close in on Hank as well if he can get his nose just ahead of the 11 times champ.
He has, and Clint's going for it as well.
Clint is going hard on the outside.
But it looks like Andy has snuck past Hank there.
McGregor is not going to want to let this one go. And here comes Nick Naughton on the outside. These four boats are side by side. And
Hank's kicked down another gear now as well. And Nick seems to be squeezing Hank. And Hank's going to try the other side.
Hank's going around the back of Andy Burkett now. He's going to have to climb over that. Clint looks like he's fallen off the back of that wave, but Nick Naughton is in with the shout. Andy Burkett is suddenly in control of this race. Magnificently engineered by the current K1 and K2 world champion. It's Andy Burkett who's got a half boat length lead. Hank McGregor has got the work to do. He's on his left. Nick Naughton is coming up on his right. They've got 150 meters down to the finish. Andy Burkett in control. Here comes Nick Naughton on the right. Can he do the impossible? Hank McGregor senses this is his place in the national team under threat, so he's got to pull out all the stops. Andy Burkett has probably got enough to do it, but the race for second is going to be massive. Burkett at the front, 3/4 of a boat length. Burkett takes gold, but the second...
Ooh, I think it just might be Hank, but it's too close to call. But I think
going with
Hank
McGregor.
Might have just snuck in there.
And I'm getting the nod from the timekeepers. Hank McGregor has done it, but by millimeters.
Great world-class racing from our South African paddlers here.
Nick Naughton, take a bow.
Yeah, Nick is really, really strong, and to compete against guys like Hank and Andy. And Clint Cook, what a great race from Clint Cook as well. Bridget Hartley coming through nice and strong, showing her powerful sprint technique. She's pulling through powerfully to take the win in the women's race.
So SA marathon champion in the K1 once again, Bridget Hartley booking her plane ticket to China. Fantastic performance from her. Created on the run, just when we thought Jenna might be the one to leverage an advantage.
You can see Bridget has been working so hard on her portages, working hard on running. I know she has been. She's become a stronger runner, and she was consistent on every single portage. She ran well, she ran hard, and she's done it. She's got the title.
Oh, congratulations to Bridget Hartley. She's got a busy end of the year coming up. She's still going to try and keep up her sprint training, keep up her marathon training, and get into shape for the surf ski world. So. Jenna Ward, really courageous effort from her. She's going to be a worthy member of that South African team that's going to be going to Shaoqing.
Yeah, great race from Jenna. We know when it comes to tactical racing and technical racing, that's her forte, which she's going to get in China. So she's had a good race today, but she's looking forward to a tactical bunch race in China later in the year.
So there's gold and silver sorted. Stu Little crossing the line as well. Take a pass, Stu Little.
Great race
Super
from
effort
Stu.
from just having fun. Eh?
Yeah.
There's a magic moment, and that's actually a replication of what happened yesterday, and it's such a great indication of the sportsmanship and camaraderie that's evident in the elite levels of marathon and sprint racing in this country.
And Luke Stoneman in the background there, we can just see the nose of his attack there. He had a brilliant race too. I'm really impressed with him. It shows that we've got one of the fastest paddlers in the country with a great marathon paddler in the country. So Christian Kansia and Luke Stoneman training together a lot. Great to see Luke coming through, and wow, I think we're going to see a lot of him in the future if he can race against guys like this and be comfortable.
So a thrilling afternoon of racing. Stick my neck out and say it went as predicted, but the race didn't turn out exactly as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, the only pity there is that we didn't have Stu McLaren in that end sprint. I'd love to have seen Stu there. But yeah, a great bunch, four at the front, working
in sprint
hard.
here, and just go through this again. And look at Nick Naughton particularly on the inside.
Yeah, Nick comes up so nicely at the end there. But Andy in control. Yeah, do you know what? I'm not gonna write Hank off here. He's just come back from racing the Molokai, which is a really long, hard race. It's definitely going to take the edge off as far as zip goes. So he can definitely up it a bit when it comes to an end sprint.
There's
so
not
it
another
could have
boat in
affected him
sight
a bit,
as Bridge comes into the finish, but it's so impressive. I mean, she really has got a juggernaut style about her,
She's
the way she
powerful.
approaches
She's
women's
really
paddling.
powerful.
It's benchmarked herself as a blonde out to have fun.
Yeah, no, Bridget trains hard. We know that. I've trained with her a lot in the past with Nando, and she's not scared to work hard. She's a hard worker, and it's worked well for her. She's become a great paddler worldwide in all disciplines, and yeah, hopefully she can work together. She's got the sprint world champs, the marathon world champs, and the surf ski world champs all within a few months. So she's got her work cut out for her.
I must say, just rewinding the clock to that last short lap, Andy Burkett, we said Hank McGregor was in position A and would be almost impossible to displace from that. He held all the cards going around 2 of the 3 turn cans. There's some of our spectators at the top of Cradleman. This place has been an unbelievable venue. I got woken up by a zebra this morning knocking on my front door. Unbelievable venue to come and race. So if there isn't an invitation for an international paddler to come out here and train here, then you're not going to find a more alluring invitation than that. But going into that final turn, Hank was in control around 2 of those 3 turn cans. And then Andy just found a line around the inside. Admittedly with Clint Cook snapping like a Jack Russell on his rudder. But that was a masterstroke from Andy. Suddenly he was in control and we didn't really see that coming.
Yeah, no, we know Andy's got a bit of zip on him, but you're never sure what you're going to get when you're trying to attack a guy like Hank McGregor. But yeah, he positioned himself well. He attacked hard. He came past, and he got the win. But it's just so exciting to see the level of paddling we've got in this country. Guys like Hank and Andy, and then the younger guys like Clint and Nick coming through. Stu McLaren, Luke Stoneman, Stu Little. The depth, it just goes on and on and on. We're just so fortunate.
And the language that Hank McGregor was using before the race is, if I'm lucky enough to make our marathon team this year. I mean, he knows full well that a hiccup, a slight change, a slightly different setup on that turn, and he could have been in the serious
just
heat.
half a bad stroke there, Nick Norton would have got him. So, yeah, he's right.
And there's Nikki Norton coming down to the line to claim bronze medal at the end of a really gutsy performance from her. Fantastic to see Nikki racing at a top level once again. I know we're going to see much, much more of it. We're going to see great things from her in a surf ski as well. And after seeing the heartbreak of seeing her withdraw in the short course yesterday, to see her finish and doing what she does best, smiling at the end of a race, then fantastic, Nick's well done.
Yeah, Nikki, a very strong surf ski paddler. She loves the downwinds as well. But she'll be looking forward to that race in France later on in the year as well.
I hope you keep the shot because hubby's coming to say well done, thank you. I hope you're all right. Who's feeding Davey tonight? I'm tired. I'm going for a dose. Andy having a chat to Nikki. They really have carved a lifestyle for themselves where they've got everything that's precious to them and everything that they hold dear, and they can share just about every moment of it. Magic moments. Andy and Nikki Burkett.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing moving to East London, and it's just like I mentioned earlier. There's such a great bunch, great camaraderie, just a great spirit down there on the water at Nahoon River and on the sea. And a happy training group is a good training group. You're always going to get the most out of it. And we're fortunate in this country. There's a lot of good training groups all around the country, which are feeding paddlers into the system. And we can see it today. That's why we've got such great depth. We've got a lot of good coaches, a lot of good training groups. And as a result, we've got a good standard of paddling.
Well, the fans are heading for the turnstiles, apparently. Medal ceremony still to come at the end of day one. Remember, if you've enjoyed day one, we're going to be live streaming the K2 racing, which I think is going to be a cracker tomorrow. And Andy and Hank teaming up in the K2. Of course, they have got a world title to defend, but that second place in the national team is going to be sporty to watch tomorrow.
We've got some strong crews tomorrow. It's going to be just as exciting. And we've got a very, very hungry Stu McLaren after today. Brandon van der Walt and Clint Cook, after watching Clint today, Brandon also was strong. I'm excited. I'm excited for tomorrow. Today was awesome, but I'm still excited for tomorrow.
So let's do a quick wrap of what you've just seen right now. Women's gold going to Bridget Hartley. Second place going to Jenna Ward, and that's going to be your national team. I don't think there's any sweat there for your national selectors. That's still got to be ratified, of course. Nikki Burkett was with them for the first quarter of this race and then got shrugged off in one of the portages and was quite content to see them go, but she finished on her own. Enjoyed every moment of being out there for the 25.9 kilometers of the women's race. But that's your podium that will be assembled in a couple of minutes' time to present the medals. Bridget and Jenna, looking forward to seeing what they can do when we get to China.
They're both very strong paddlers, and Bridget's got the straight line speed as well as a lot of marathon experience, tons of marathon experience. Jenna good on the group. Not that Bridget isn't, they both are, but Jenna just really rises to the occasion when it comes to group racing. But those two paddlers to represent the country at Worlds, we couldn't ask for a better team than that in the ladies racing.
It's going to be a good-looking podium. Now, as far as the men are concerned, well, the top two, as we've talked about all afternoon, should be the team that goes to the national champs, and I don't see the selectors doing anything sensational to drop that. Seems like there's an exchange program going on here. Spot the exchange student. Magic place here, Cradle Moon. Shadows are getting longer and the temperature is starting to fall. Gets fairly, I think crisp is the official term here at night.
I'd say it's freezing. No, you don't get that much ice for being crisp. I think it's a lot colder than that.
So as far as the men are concerned, there's your champion, there's your reigning marathon K1 and K2 world champion, and he's once again the South African champion. Hank McGregor, I asked him a little bit earlier, how many times have you been on the podium at an SA Marathon Champs? And he just rolled his eyes. I don't know, it's been decades.
More than fingers and toes.
Yeah, exactly. And Nick Naughton, I mean, gee, if you could have made it 2.5 instead of a third, I think that would have been an appropriate finish for the man.
Yeah, no, Nick raced a great race, and it's just so exciting to watch these younger guys coming through and giving the likes of Hank and Andy a good run for their money. And again, tomorrow in the doubles, we've got Hank and Andy, reigning world champions, Nick Naughton, Stu McLaren, Clint Cook. We're very lucky to have this level of paddling right now.
It's funny, and every year has been different. You think of the drama we had down at St. Francis, there was Camps Drift just before that, and we've had some amazing places, the Flay and howling wind and rains. This race will be remembered for a whole different set of factors, so let's just rewind the clock, and now that we know what the outcome was, you can cast an eye over what happened in this race and the dominant players, because there were 16 boats that started, and this unusual setup of a bunch of youngsters and under 23s ready to mix it with the big dogs. And if you look at the way 6 of them finished right in the mix at the end of it all, where I think honestly people were surprised, but they've really proved a point. And there's a subtext to this year's Marathon Champs, and that has been the under 23s and the people like Luke Stoneman who've gone in there and mixed it for the duration, which is what I think really has impressed us. But this was the start in the beginning, and we saw Brian LaRue, as he threatened to do early on, ready to rattle the cages.
Yeah, there's just under 23s everywhere on that bunch.
Stu Little settling into the front, and everybody said, well, and there's Luke Stoneman coming up on the outside, and Andy and Hank in no times at all coming into that first highlight, just calm and composed. And
very controlled.
So it's coming into the portages here. Remember Hank, if anything, minor mistake, he whacked a rudder. It wasn't on this portage, I don't think. But there was a little mistake by Hank. He bumped that rudder and then had to go and make up 15 seconds when he stopped on the portage to fix it a little bit later. But I love the aggression in our portages.
No, it is great, yeah. You've got to be fast locally and internationally on the portages. You can't be a slouch. And the guys know that, and they're trained for it. They're trained to be able to run as fast as they can. Clint Cook, he was impressive. He really was. His paddling has definitely jumped up a notch. He's been training hard for years now, and he's shown us. Technically, he is on it. If there had been a break today, Clint would have been the first guy on it. He was always in the right place at the right time. There weren't any breaks, but he put himself in positions continuously where he could be in a position to break away and potentially have a chance of making the team.
And not afraid to flex his muscles. That little move at the end where he put his nose inside Andy's boat to get on the inside of that final turn. I mean, he was setting the stage for a real scare for these big boys.
Yeah, no, he's thinking well. He's thinking maturely. He's racing maturely. And it's great to see. And in the doubles tomorrow, we're going to see him again with Brandon van der Waals. And we're so fortunate to watch these guys race at this level for 2 days in a row.
And that's the bittersweet shot, because Stu McLaren was also looking really strong. He looked like he was able to match, if not better, what Nick was It's a big drop down at that put-in, and I think if you're going to get into your boat while it's still moving, you're going to have to nail it. Otherwise, it's going to have consequences. Portage, Hank McGregor. And from those that were watching Stu, apparently it was just he put in, and it was just a stroke that he put in too hard, and he overbalanced on the right-hand side. Hank again running to the end of that portage, pushing himself away, and Clint Cook
Right there again, every single time.
He's again, we laughed about the guy who's going to be in the background of all those Facebook images. He's going to be there behind Hank in virtually every shot, so exciting times for him. It also says something about what's happening from a training point of view up here in Joburg, because the guys that he trained with up here, they're clearly racing at a level which has took him to a threat to world number 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think Attila Adrovic has moved up here. He's coaching the guys at Dubulamanzi. I don't know if Clint falls under that. He could very well, but there's a strong bunch of sprinters who are training here up at Dubulamanzi at the moment.
So Hank McGregor running the portage hard once again. And this time it's Nick shadowing Hank at the put-in. Clint finds himself forced to the right. No change to that group. And then down to the finish line. Andy Burkett was in control of this thanks to that superb move going around the top turn cans. And Hank really had to dig deep to try and keep Nick off that second step on the podium.
You could see how hungry Nick was for that. He really wanted it. And he pushed it right through to the end, which is important.
Fantastic men's race. Women's race, different in its scale, but no different in its intensity, because there were 4 significant boats in the beginning. It was down to 3. Nikki Burkett was the third. That lasted for about a quarter of the race, and then it was down to Jenna Ward and Bridget Hartley. So let's just rewind the women's race. We saw at the start there. There was the 3, and you could see pretty quickly that was going to be the case. Nikki was a little bit slow off the start line in that pink vest, but she got herself right back into the frame. And Morgan Zeervogel that you saw at the top there, super strong start from her, but it was a matter of time before that 4 became 3. Jenna Ward on the outside, and Bridget Hartley with her customary strong start. Somebody who during her sprinting career had to deal with the fact that she was one of the slower starters, but she's so dynamic as a starter in a marathon boat.
And Nikki Burkett there looking really strong. I hope that the sickness hasn't been a major factor. It could be. We don't actually know how she was feeling. I know she's been training hard leading up to this event. So it's a bit of a pity that she wasn't feeling on form, if that is the reason. But it would be great to have seen her on that 3 all the way through. She looked really slick on that portage, and yeah, let's hope she was feeling okay.
Bridge Hartley, and this happened a couple of times in the race as well. I mean, it's being raced at the highest level. The intensity is good. These women are ultra competitive, but they don't hesitate to pause and rectify a situation if they feel they might be compromising or getting in the way of each other. There's Bridge actually stopping to pull the nose of Jenna's boat out of the way, and we saw it at one of the takeouts as well, where Jen's hand went under the nose of Bridge's boat. She's chilled enough to be able to say, well, we don't want any dramas.
You've got to take a step back and just compose yourself and make sure you do the right thing. It's so easy to put a boat on top of someone's paddle or on top of their boat, or tip someone out and get a penalty. You've got to stay out of each other's way, and especially at a World Champs level where there's a lot more paddlers around you. So Jenna right there again. She was always, no matter where she was on the run, she would put it and she'd go straight onto that wave of Bridget immediately if she was a bit behind.
And there's Nikki Burkett on her own in her Cinco, as the front 2 got away, and then she had to resign herself to the fact. Jenna, there we saw her taking on a juice, taking off her cap, straight back onto Bridget's rudder, shadowed her. I think Bridget put in every one of these portages first. And Jen would have hoped to maybe try and do something a bit more dramatic on the portages, but in the event that this race was not decided on the portages.
You can see that Bridget's been working on the portages.
Bridget
she was so consistent. She didn't slip up once. She was out quickly. She ran well. She was away perfectly after the portages, which made it tough for Jenna to do anything substantial on the portages because Bridget was just so prepared for them.
Cinco and Quattro, both the preferred boats of these two girls, just what you feel comfortable in, what works for you.
Exactly.
Out they come for the portages. And there's again Bridge happy to take her boat backward to make sure that it doesn't cause any
Well, there's
unnecessary
no
dramas.
advantage there. If she had moved forward, she would have got caught up under Jenna's arm. It would have
Correct.
disadvantaged both of them. So you've just got to be mature and make the right decision and know that it's in the benefit of yourself as well as the other paddler.
Sneaking feeling there was a replay of the previous portage because Jenna's just lost 2 caps and 2 portages.
She's got a lot of caps.
Well done, Team Ward, for replacing the cap somewhere along the line. And you look at what Bridget is achieving as a paddler at this stage, and I'm not going to head into that murky territory of mentioning an age as far as a woman is concerned, but she also has the possibility, given her stamina and her base and her ability in an endurance environment, to deliver a lot more at the top level for this country.
Definitely, yeah. You look at someone like Birgit Fischer from Germany. She went on well into her 40s, winning an Olympic
Edelman.
medal. Exactly, yeah. So Bridget is still relatively young when you look at girls like that.
And I think if Bridge looks at this race, I think she knew what she had going into this race, and I think the other girls realized where her strengths were. But what we're seeing on screen right now has been the single biggest area of improvement in Bridget Hartley's marathon performance, because she's run these portages really, really well, to the point that she's actually managed to transfer all the pressure to the other women she's racing against.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's surprising. It's great that she's put in this effort, and I think it's gonna maybe change the way we see her racing at Worlds this year.
Well, I've got no doubt that that's on her agenda, because I think with her ability, if she was to balance her career, she would love to at least get that medal behind her at a Marathon Champs Worlds. Nix Burkett all on her own. She must be looking forward to these portages because she had so much great support. She's got a lot of great support base and fans in the crowd. These 2 girls were left to grind it out on their own, taking one of the back markers at the portage. Taking out on the right. I know it does throw a couple of paddlers when you land up racing a marathon course where your takeout is on the left.
Yeah, we're generally used to taking out on the opposite side to this, so you can see some of the guys or definitely myself, I was very rusty on this side. It's just so not normal, but the guys know what the course is going to be. They train for it and they prepare for it, and they should be slick taking it on either side. It's just so tough for your brain to get around getting it on the other side.
A little element of self-doubt creeps in.
And that's where practice comes in. All the top athletes here, they've put in the time and they've practiced multiple times taking out on this side. So they're comfortable.
I did watch a portage put-in session practice yesterday afternoon, where the whole sensational idea of putting that boat in, moving and jumping in and going, getting that balance right with that 1 foot so that that boat doesn't stop moving, which is almost impossible with that higher portage put in. Let's face it, you maybe do it on the beach put in.
Unless you Len Jenkins.
Correct.
Len Jenkins has given many South Africans so many grey hairs at World Champs level, watching him jump in and surf his boat away from the jetty. It's just so stressful to watch, but he mastered it every time, and fortunately he never fell in. But I think his bronze medal that he won in Spain was a result of surfing away on the final portage.
And this was the portage that actually handed the victory to Bridget Hartley. And you could sense the resignation in Jenna's stroke there.
Yeah, she knew
She got-
Bridget had gone. Bridget's a top sprinter. I think she knew if she had put in as much effort as she could, it would be tough to catch Bridget. So she decided second is enough. I'm not going to kill myself. I'm in the team. Let's save this for China.
Oh, and done comprehensively on the portage. Congratulations to Bridget Hartley. She's going to be
Great race.
gold medal and SA champion 2019. Jenna Ward takes silver medal, and crucially the 2nd place in the on the plane that's going to be flying long way to China. Now she can start thinking about freighting that boat and making arrangements and choosing kit sizes and all those good things. Well done, girls.
Tough race for them. Just two boats most of the way, but they still pushed it. They didn't hold back, and they gave it their all.
So that's the end of a great day's racing. Thank you for joining us from wherever you've been watching in the world. Apologies if we haven't been able to respond to the comments that you've been posting on the YouTube live stream. We're going to do our level best to have a look at those tomorrow and answer those questions, so please don't hesitate in keeping those coming. Tomorrow afternoon, 11:45, we're going to be going live with the K2 racing for the senior men and the senior women, and of course the selection for the South African team that'll be going to China in October. So thanks for joining us. There's our champions once again in the men's race, Andy Burkett, Hank McGregor, who are going to be going to the the World Championships in China. Nick Naughton, 2.5. I don't even want to call him third, but it was a fascinating race. And Clint just off the back of that as well. Confirmation of the podium that's going to be assembling in a couple of minutes' time. Bridget Hartley and Jenna Ward are going to be making up the national team. Nikki Burkett some way off them in the end, but a valiant competitor. That's going to be the podium as it starts to get chilly down here at Canoeing. And Stott, my co-commentator, thank you. You got a racing day tomorrow, just so we can see what sort of nick you're going to be in before we get you on air tomorrow?
I'm still deciding at this stage. I haven't put much training into this event, so it took a lot out of me, even though it was only 20 Ks. But I'll see how I feel in the morning and how cold it is and how much ice there is around.
Okay, if you've got Ann Stott's phone number, please start WhatsApping him and tell him to stop being a fairy and just get out there and race. I'll abuse him from the tower. We look forward to seeing you back here, 11:45, back on the live stream. From the whole team here, the Debulamanzi and the Gauteng team, from the team of sponsors from AdReach and Eurosteel, and the massive team of sponsors that have been behind it, from the team responsible for the live stream, the cameras that have been on all corners of the course, and the technicians that have made it possible. Thank you for being with us. We look forward to joining up with you again, 11:45 SA time tomorrow for the final day of the SA Marathon Champs 2019.
The course is going to be an anti-clockwise course around the lake here at Cradle Moon. The lap length is about 3 kilometers and a 100-meter long portage with good vantage points along the course. The venue itself is beautiful, clean water, set in a wildlife reserve. So there's wild animals, lots of antelope, zebra, and giraffe running around, and yeah, lots of beautiful, clean water and an interesting course. Gauteng Marathon Champs is taking place 2 weeks before SA Champs, first weekend in June, and yeah, we're expecting a good turnout. We please encourage guys from other provinces to come along and have a good look at the venue and experience some good racing up here.